Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Miller. Every week, I chat with fascinating people from all walks of life in order to bring you knowledge, inspiration, and insight. If you enjoy the show, you can support it by subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it with a friend. This is the Jeremy Miller Podcast. Percell Dugger.
There you go.
Welcome to the show, dude.
I appreciate it.
Glad to have you here.
I'm happy to be here.
Dude, you're in Austin for the South by Southwest.
Man, it's been a good time. I saw some friends in San Antonio. I drove back and forth a few. I saw some friends in Dallas. And I've kind of just been making my rounds around Texas, honestly. But I'm definitely here for South by Southwest. It's been a good time so far.
How do you like Texas versus
First of all, the barbecue
city?
is phenomenal.
Where have you gone for
Everywhere.
barbecue?
Like everywhere. I went to this place. I think it's called Freddy's or Frankie's.
There's
Franklin's. There you go.
Did you wait in the line?
I did not. I knew somebody who knew somebody.
Oh,
yeah.
Must be nice.
I must have. I placed a few phone calls. I asked around a little bit. I made sure because I was told it's a thing. Like, and I hate lines.
Yeah.
Like I'll get discouraged. Like even in New York City where everyone waits online, I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, so yeah, I did that. There's a place known for its like chicken sandwiches. It's like something bird.
Freebirds?
Yeah.
No. That's a burrito place.
No, it's not Freebirds.
Chicken sandwiches, bird.
I
know what you're talking about.
It's in my phone. Like,
yeah, we can look it up.
Yeah.
Dang.
Like,
What'd you think of Franklin?
it was good.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
That didn't seem too.
It didn't like because everyone talks about stuff like it's gonna change your life. It was good, but like
Have you been to Terry Black's since you've been here?
Terry Black's. I'm actually about to look it up now.
Terry.
Bird biscuit.
I've never heard of that. It's in Austin?
There, yeah. I went to Black's Barbecue Austin.
Is that Terry Black's?
I don't know.
It's got to be.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Franklin Barbecue. I went there.
Dude, nothing but barbecue this week.
I went to this place called Valhalla.
Dude, you're getting all these good spots I don't know about.
Yeah, I was moving. I got some homies who like lived here for a while, and I have a few, like one of my best friends lives here currently.
Okay.
So like they love to eat. They kind of just like took me around a bunch of spots, but it's been cool.
That's awesome, dude.
Did
you grow up in New York City?
Yeah, born and raised.
Born and raised in Manhattan?
Nah, so I grew up in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Which is, I would say, outside of Manhattan, probably one of the most popular boroughs and parts of New York City. And then when my mom went to grad school at Columbia, we moved to Harlem because that's where it's at. And I lived there throughout high school. Then college, moved back home after traveling a bit. And when I got back home to New York City, eventually I ended moving back to Harlem. I like Harlem. It's got a lot of culture in it. It's got a plethora of like Black-owned businesses and startups. And then simultaneously, like it's so convenient to get downtown. Like living in Brooklyn, if you don't live on like the outskirts of Brooklyn by the water, it can take you damn near an hour to get into the city.
Really?
Whereas like in Harlem, it takes you 20 minutes to get downtown.
Dang.
Like take the train, it's real quick. Driving might, depending on traffic, it might be 30 minutes. But if not, you can get there pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And then I like to bike a lot when the weather's nice. So living in Harlem just made sense for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Have you ever lived anywhere outside of like the New York City area?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I lived in Buffalo for quite a bit.
Oh, really?
I lived in DC for a minute. When I was traveling, I was in this graduate development program for school, and we had a chance to spend time in like different countries for like 6 to 8 months at a time. But that was pretty cool just because, young 20-something-year-old kid, you don't get to see like for me, the first time I used my passport, I was probably like 22, 21.
Dang.
Like I've never been out the country until then. So for me, I think it was like it must have been 2009, 2010 when I was traveling a lot, and I had a blast. Probably 2008, 2009 maybe. I had a blast.
Where'd you go? Where was that first trip?
Toronto was cool. London was cool. There's a neighborhood in London. It's like the Harlem of New York City, and London's called Brixton.
Oh, okay.
And that was really, really cool. Then what else did we go? I've been to Johannesburg. I've been there. I've been to Cape Town. That was really cool. Trying to think. London, Joburg, Cape Town.
Where's Johannesburg? What country is that in?
That is in South Africa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think where else have I been. I've been to Singapore.
Dang.
I've been there.
I've heard that's a cool city.
Yeah, it's just, man, the flights to like anywhere in Asia,
so far,
it's like a day. Like it's just not fun. Like I don't care if I'm flying Delta One premium luxury. I don't like being trapped in a moving bus in the air for over like 4 hours. Like any flight that's like longer than 4 hours, I'm miserable.
You're a big dude too.
See what I'm saying? Like, you feel my pain. Well, you don't feel my pain, but you understand. But you understand.
I'm like 5'8". I got a little bit. I get some leg room actually. You're probably cramped up in there.
I hate it. I'd rather sit. I tell people all the time. You know the exit row that doesn't have a seat in front of it. I'd rather sit in that on any flight than to sit comfort or first class.
Really?
Like, give me first class, unless like it's a really, really long flight. I'd much rather sit in the exit row with like full leg room and I could just stretch out.
Yeah.
Because like, why not?
Yeah, airplanes were not built for big people.
They weren't. They don't take us into consideration when they think about like what they're doing and why.
Damn.
They're just like, get as many people as possible in this little piece of shit.
Yeah.
But I hate it.
I love that. Dude, you've been all over the place. That's awesome. I didn't realize you traveled so much.
I mean, I'm a lot older than I look. I tell people all the time, like, folks think I'm like 29.
That's what I was thinking.
24. Like, nah, like 30s. Mid-30s.
Mid-30s, okay.
Like,
I would not have guessed that.
Early mid-30s. Like, not, late 30s. Like,
I was thinking 20s for sure.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know what's crazy? These creative programs that we always talk about. My audience on social, it's a bunch of Gen Z. Like 30% of my audience is like, I don't know how it got that way. I don't know when the shift happened, but 30% of my audience is Gen Z. The other like 33% of my audience is millennials.
We've got like young energy, I feel like.
Yeah, I think that's why.
Like it's more relatable.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't feel like although I'm a very serious coach, I feel like I come across in the way that I want to be, which is like an accessible, approachable, like down to earth guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was surprised because I was like, I wouldn't have guessed it. Like, I wouldn't have guessed it.
Dude, well, it's a compliment for sure.
I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining.
And I mean, you're so active too. Like, obviously, exercise makes you look younger, feel healthier.
That's
all
true.
That.
That's true. I always laugh because people will say that. I'm like, oh, you look good. And I'm like, well, they say if you take good care of your body, and not just in terms of movement, what you eat, your stress level. Like, I know people who are active, but man, they always stressed out. Like, they just, every day they got a complaint. Every day they're telling you a story about something that they don't like or something that's wrong. And I feel like for the most part, I live a pretty chill life. Like, I wake up in the morning, my phone is not blowing up with like a bunch of nonsense on it. Like, it's just pretty chill. Like, and I'm trying to keep it that way. Like,
Is all your coaching in person, or do you do remote stuff too?
Man, good question. Both. It's so interesting though, because these days, I want to say initially, like I was the guy, like a lot of new trainers. I was waking up 4 in the morning, getting to the gym, working out at 6, first client around 7:30, working from 7:30 to probably like maybe like 1:30, have lunch, maybe take a quick nap, shower. By the time I finish eating and doing all that stuff, it's like 4:30. More clients from like 5 to about 8 in a repeat. I did that for years. Like I started off, I used to work at Equinox. I was a brand trainer for Muscle Milk for a while. I did some stuff with Jordan Brand. Like I was just, if there was a good opportunity that paid, sign me up. But in undergrad, I was one of those guys who like majored in exercise science. I knew not necessarily that like I was going to be a strength coach, but I was spending so much time with my strength coaches in college. It just made sense. Like I was learning so much from them hands-on. But then I also like, I love to read. I was a bit of a nerd. So like being a philosophy major was also like just eye-opening and like super cool for me. But then once I graduated, I think I learned in undergrad, like all of my strength coaches, none of them talked about it like they enjoyed it. Like they talked about how underpaid they were. They talked about how hard, the long hours. So I'd never forget in my mind, Instagram at the time is not what it is now. This is like 08, maybe 07.
It's fresh back then.
This is like pictures and like, the algorithm that's like in time, like order, you know what I mean? You put 30 hashtags, everybody sees it.
Right.
Like, so I remember saying to myself, I was like, if I can be a better storyteller, like a better marketer, because, even to this day, the best product is subjective, but who tells a better story to drive you to said product? And for me, I'm like, well, I feel really confident in my ability to coach, but what I wanted to learn to get better at was how do I tell a story around the coaching that I do, around the services I provide, around my thoughts, my opinions, my perspective on not just fitness and training and performance, but just like wellness in general. And I leaned into it. Like I've gotten some cool opportunities over the years, which I'm probably sure we'll talk about for a little bit, but for the most part, it's just really been about how do I lean into storytelling, and then how do I have impact in the stories that I tell in terms of like health disparities and inequalities and like supporting people's like health journey.
Yeah.
And it's been cool so far. I can't complain.
Where did you get that idea of like, okay, I got to tell a better story? Was like something you learned in school or just like an observation? Or?
It was an observation. Like, here's a good example. I remember saying to myself, Kobe Bryant is a better basketball player than Allen Iverson. But Allen Iverson is like this cultural phenomenon that we all love and like hold dear to our heart. Why? Because the story told around Allen Iverson was one that at a certain point in time, we just identified with more, right? Like people, not everyone, but there was a segment of the universe who felt like Allen Iverson, him having braids and cornrows and wearing clothes that oversized and like him getting into trouble when he was in high school. People just looked at that and was like, I've been through that. I know what that's like. Like, there was a level of connection that they had with his story. But Kobe Bryant was a better player of basketball, right? Then I think about like instances like quarterbacks. Like Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round, right?
Yeah.
There's so many guys that were picked before him. Who was better? Like what someone thinks in terms of how they judge and evaluate talent, for better or worse, they are the authoritative figure. They're the gatekeeper in that situation. But if you can win, if you can compete on a playing field that's relatively even and have success, then it's about, okay, cool. Like, do we like this guy? Like, how are we telling the story around him? And I think I've observed early on in Tom Brady's career, he went from like, who the hell is this guy? You know what I mean? Like why do we care about this guy? To like, he's not as good as Peyton Manning. To like, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. You know what I mean? Like, and I think it has to do in part with, yes, you have to have interest about you. You have to do something noteworthy that we want to pay attention to. But once you do that, it's like, what makes you unique? What's the draw beyond the fact that you're a good football player? Because the reality is that there's hundreds of them. Like, we can name a lot of quarterbacks. We really can. Like Dan Marino, Joe Montana, Troy Aikman, John Elway, et cetera, et cetera. But there's only one Tom Brady.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's like I understood very early that the difference between somebody who was like really, really good at their job versus the guy who like owned the building and like had capital and like real estate within his industry at times had to do with the fact of like, yeah, one of them invested more in the storytelling on top of being a quality like coach and individual and having a product. You know? Like,
I love that analogy. That's so good.
Yeah.
So how did you lean into that within your own story? Like what kind of things did you put out there? Like, I hope people relate to this, and is it just like be yourself, or how did you go about that?
Yeah, I think it started with be yourself. Like obviously, like I just, you just posting like everybody else. I think my mom is a pastor and my dad is a social worker. So for me, this idea of like health and like wellness and like community was very much like part of just like my everyday life growing up. Like my dad used to have a room in a crib. There was no furniture. It was a blanket and a chair, but he was an addict. So he would go in and meditate because meditation helped him with his sobriety. Like, that was just part of like his lived experience. As a kid, he would take me to these like meetings and they would talk about him and a room full of other strangers. And, these folks are like addicts. Like these people like are drug addicts. This is just a lived experience for them. But in these rooms, it was a lot of love in there. Like people was hugging and looking out for each other and making sure everybody was okay. And I just thought that was super interesting. In my mind, it was like, well, how do I know that Black and brown folks are disproportionately impacted by heart disease, but heart disease is also the number one killer in America, period. Like a lot of us are dying from heart disease. At the same time, it's preventable or reversed through frequent and regular exercise.
Yeah.
Now, granted, some might say, well, and it's partly true that, or rather, it's true that the reason why maybe it disproportionately impacts people is because of like other systemic like issues, right? Like gym deserts, food insecurity, et cetera, et cetera. At the same time, I know that as a health and fitness like movement professional, it's more accessible to move your own body than it is some places to go find kale, right? So it's like, if I can be the catalyst or the entry point around what gets somebody to move or what keeps somebody moving, it's like, not only am I impacting like people's healing, but I'm also impacting people's ability to just like thrive and go on to like support other people, because the feeling when you see someone running, you go, I want to do that too. Like, or you might say, I don't want to do that. And I think my job is to create or tell stories in a way that invite and not indict people around either what they do or like why they don't do it, right? Like if you don't run, I want to invite you to do it, right? If you feel like running's not for you, I want to give you an invitation and not be like, shut the fuck up, stop being a bitch. Like
they like Goggins kind of.
Yeah. It's crazy because like I know he means well.
Yeah.
But it's just like, you know, he knows his audience. He knows who he's talking to. I can't blame him. But that doesn't work for everybody.
No.
You know, like you can have good intentions, but also just know that like I think the fitness industry as a whole kind of looks at stories in a very like linear way. Like get in the gym, do this today, get off your ass. And it's like, I don't really know if that really works for me.
Yeah, there's definitely two types of people, I think.
Right.
That resonates with some people of like, yo, do the work.
Right.
You know, quit being a little bitch.
Right.
But then it seems like probably more people probably would resonate with like the more encouraging, inviting aspect of it.
Right.
Because it's the gym and fitness is so intimidating to most people, especially if you don't grow up playing sports or in a team environment or moving your body like that.
Right.
It can be so intimidating.
Man, it's the hardest thing to do. I remember during COVID, my mom would take like my virtual classes and she couldn't get through the warm up. My mom's, you know, at the time she's like late 50s. And I'm sitting here saying to myself, like, if my mom, mind you, I'm teaching a very accessible, like, entry-level class. But if she's struggling to do it, and this is my mother, imagine how many girlfriends because my mom is the active friend in her friend group. Like, she's the one who'll go for walks. She'll do, like, yoga and stuff like that. So in my mind, I'm like, if my mom is, quote-unquote, the active, fit friend in her peer group, and she's having a hard time struggling for my classes, I'd be a jerk to say, well, fuck it, mom, get your shit together, right? Because I know that in fitness settings, you walk into somebody's class and you get your ass kicked, it's almost like you come back if you want to.
Yeah.
Right? You had to be wired a certain way to want to continuously show up. But in my mind, I'm like, man, how do I use this as a learning to evaluate my programming, to evaluate my language, to evaluate the energy that I brought into that moment, to not just attract my mom to come back, but to get her and other people like her who might not necessarily see themselves in the way that, or rather they might not be showing up and having the experience in the way that they want to, or they just feel turned off to the experience as a whole. It's like, I put the emphasis on the coaches. Like, to me, I think part of the reason why a number of people don't feel encouraged and supported in the fitness space or just in running and movement in general is because coaches. Like, I think coaches, we don't do a good enough job of being inviting. We just indict people every day with like the bullshit. And it's like, that might work, but is that sustainable? You know?
You're always just being told what you're doing wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Dude, that reminds me, like, when I was playing baseball in high school, I quit because I hated the coaches.
See?
Like, they made it so serious and not fun. It was just like, if we're not winning, then
why the fuck are we here?
Yeah, exactly. And I quit because it was just so miserable.
Right.
So that's so true. Yeah, coaches really do make the biggest difference, whether it's a team sport or
doesn't matter. Yeah.
Like personal training, one-on-one aspect.
I coached girls AAU basketball for 7 summers, and I recently met up with my girls and we all grabbed brunch. And I was like, yo, so like, what, like, you know, fast forward, now you all grown, y'all 21, y'all getting drinks right now, we hanging out like adults. Like, what do you think? Like, what were the lessons learned? And they all said, Coach, you were right. Like, but also we appreciated the fact that like you were thoughtful at that time in our lives, because now that we're adults, we realize most people don't give a fuck. Like, they do not care about you. Like, you just show up, you do whatever you want to do. And if you don't do your job, you'll get fired and sit home, and it really won't be an explanation. Yeah. So, yeah, it's been interesting, man. Coaches, you play a pivotal role in people. And I think for me, I don't know if David Goggins considers himself as a coach, but in my mind, it's like you can do a lot on this damn phone. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I love, I never met him before. Korean dude, tall, Matt Choi.
Yeah.
And
you didn't see him at all this week?
Nah, I didn't.
He's a good dude.
Yeah, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I get it. Like him, mile 5, mile 10. It's like, bro, it works. Like, it might not work for me, but like that is an invitation. He's pulling you in real time to what he's doing in real time, right? And that people resonate with that. So I think it's cool, man. My job is just to continue growing as a storyteller and let the work speak for itself.
I love that. Did you have any coaches growing up? Obviously, you said basketball, football. Mm-hmm. Did you have any coaches either positively or negatively impact you? And like, oh, that coach, like, he made the biggest difference. Or is like, Man, I didn't like that coach.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had coaches who really helped me improve as an athlete for the sake of athletics. Like I had coaches who instilled a level of like work ethic in me. They had military backgrounds, and they very much were like, "This is how you do things." I think the one unfortunate thing about like the coaches that I had, they were all like patronizing, and I think for me as a coach, where I really grew was when I started coaching girls AAU basketball.
Yeah.
Because you don't realize how patriarchy like is so like ingrained in the fabric of like not just your personal existence, but like the culture of sport. So when you get into sports and then there's no men around and you're coaching like you've been coaching, like you've been taught to coach, like you've been coached my entire life. For me, it forces you to unlearn a lot. And I think I don't want to throw all my coaches under the bus and say they were all pieces of shit, because they weren't. But I do think that like a number of them were never forced to unlearn their approaches. Like my coaches would say, like let's say we were watching film and you were getting your ass kicked. Like let's just say like, true story. So apologies to anybody who hears this. So we're watching film and one of my buddies, he played like D tackle. And he was getting knocked around. And my coach was like, "This is fucking vaginitis." And it's like,
Oh my God.
in 2004, 2005,
Yeah.
that's probably like, maybe it's acceptable. But like today, you'd lose your job.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now imagine this. Imagine if I didn't do this, but just imagine if I'm coaching a girls basketball team my first year, right? And I'm like, it's fucking vaginitis. You being a little bitch. Like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't work.
It's not going to fly.
But not only does it not work from the standpoint of like, because a great athlete can overcome adverse and like bad coaching. It happens all the time, right? But imagine, just take this performance element out of it. What kind of message are you sending to that kid, right, in that moment around the interpersonal dynamics of a coach and a player, interpersonal dynamics versus a man and a woman, right, or person to person, and then like normalizing that kind of like language.
Yeah.
Like, I don't fuck with you as you get older, right? Because even if it works in terms of helping that kid, that person have success within their performance goals, that doesn't apply to the rest of life.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like and I think sometimes as people, because you get out of sports, you become an adult, now you're training, you can be very self-deprecating. You know what I mean? Like I can't tell you how many times like I've been like with a client pacing them on a run or something like that. And I'm like, come on, bitch, get it together. I'm like, yo, chill. Like, you got it. There's another way. Like, there's another way. Like, when you're alone and you by yourself, if that's the language you want to use to talk to yourself, I'm not going to sit here and say you're a bad person because of it. But I do just want to coach you to understand, like, there are other approaches that you can take to go about motivating yourself when you feel like you hit a wall.
Yeah.
And it's like, that kind of language it doesn't fly.
Yeah, positive self-talk.
Yeah.
I feel like is usually better. But I mean, for some people, again, it resonates if you're, hating on yourself.
Stay hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, all right, bro, cool. Yeah. Like, I guess.
Did you have any coaches that kind of played that like role model for you? Where it's like, oh, I want to be like this guy.
Or
girl.
I think all of my coaches, like, I didn't like envy their lives. Like, I didn't like I live a better quality of life like at my age now than like they did. None of my coaches, like none of them are rich. None of them like they all seem like they devoted all of their life to coaching. And I think they had a great impact on like young men. I think they'd be really proud of that. But I don't know. I never got a chance to like one of them who I was really close with. Like I would go to his house on weekends. I used to hang out with him. He used to drive me to school some days in the morning, or he used to make sure always I had food. His name was Ruben Sanchez. And like, he didn't really have a girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like he didn't have any children. Like we were his kids, And I think there's a part of me that what I appreciate about the coaches that I did have is they showed me a side of the spectrum to be aware of.
Yeah.
Like, you can devote your whole life to this and you can have people make plaques for you and celebrate you and come to your funeral and love you. But I think what I've been attempting to do is like to really have a very fulfilled life holistically and not just as a coach.
Yeah.
Because what I've learned, even so one of my mentors, she's the first American-born Black woman to win a marathon.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, her name is Marilyn Bevins. I got an event coming up with her in a couple weeks.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she's super dope.
Is she older? Or?
She's 74 years old.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
And she holds the record for American-born Black woman to run sub 3 hours in a marathon. I think she did it something like 15 times or something like that. Like she was the first like world-class like marathoner who was like an American-born Black woman. Because like there's a lot of Kenyans and Ethiopians who like are also fast, but like for like an American, like that's like a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And yeah, like she would tell me all the time, like she missed out on a lot of her friendships, and she allowed a lot of her friendships to kind of fall to the wayside growing up because she was so devoted to running that once she stopped running, it was kind of like, well, what do you do now? You know what I mean? Like who you gonna hang out with? And I think one of her, when she talks about like her experience as a runner, like she accomplished all the things. It's like she wishes, and she tells people all the time, like, I know training can get lonely. I know it can get isolating, but like, this is where my coaching comes in. Cause you know how like, let's say you have a 16-week program, every 4 weeks is like a micro block. Within that micro block, you probably program like a down week. That down week is probably a good time. Call your friends, see what the homies doing, check in with people, like maybe grab it, not a drink, but like hang out with somebody, like call your parents and your family and people who you love and just check up on them. And it's like, sometimes when it comes to performance, it's okay to be isolated and focused, but you got to recognize that there's a person attached to these goals, and you have to fill that cup up as well. Otherwise, you just end up burning yourself out. You may or may not hit these goals. Hopefully you do, but then that's all you ever got out of life. Like, you ran all these marathons, you had these great times, but like when everyone's done with the race and they go home, when you go lay in your bed, outside of like having some medals, like, do you feel loved? You know what I mean? And I think that's a big, big question that like I just encourage a lot of my clients and athletes who are like, training, myself included. Like, I want to keep that at the forefront of my life. Like, I want to hit all these goals. Don't get me wrong. I'm running 5 marathons this year, but at the same time, like, I want to enjoy this shit,
Yeah, that's a balance I feel like not enough people talk about.
Yeah.
Because it's like people get so set on fitness and being healthy, which is fantastic. It's great. But when you make that your like entire existence and your only priority, like something else has to give. Yeah. Without a doubt.
Right.
Yeah. I love that you preach that balance though. That's so cool. And I like that you you're not like the hardo, like a Huggins kind of guy. Yeah. It's just like, we want to be fit. It makes it more approachable, and it makes it more accessible, obviously.
I mean, if I'm being honest, man, I just think that like people are really motivated by stories that they can identify with. And every now and then a little inspiration, a little kick in the ass is cool. But like on a day-to-day, bro, like you just gotta recognize that like you're a person. You're not a machine. Yeah. And if you are a machine, it's probably only when you're competing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Did you play sports after high school? Did you play in college?
Yeah, I did.
Basketball and football?
Yeah. Mainly football. I was like, looking back on it, if I knew what I knew about concussions, I would have just stuck to basketball.
Really?
Because I come from a basketball family. Like I have one of my uncles, his name is Winston Duke, and he's not an uncle. He's my dad's first cousin. So he's really like my cousin. And so like,
that sounds good.
Yeah, cousin. And he's got like a street named after him.
Oh wow.
We wore the same number. People, because I competed and I was good, people thought that was my dad growing up. But he played in the league. He hit a game winner in the NIT championship at Madison Square Garden.
Damn.
Like he played in the league for a number of years. But his name is Winston Duke. And then I had other uncles who like played well, went to D1 colleges and competed. But I think for me, sports was like the only option I really had. Like I wasn't trying to. My mom always instilled in me to read and finish school and all things. But I loved to play ball. Like that was just like it for me. But when I got to college, or rather my senior year of high school, I was getting more looks for football. Like I just was. Like I remember it was Michigan State, Penn State, Michigan, University of Virginia, and Wisconsin.
Those are big schools.
Yeah. I was a pretty highly touted like recruit. But
what position did you play?
Wide receiver.
Okay.
I mean, wide receiver and linebacker. It was one of those two. Because in college, it's like you might play both in high school. When you get to college, you're doing one.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I would say I love basketball. Like I love basketball. But for me, I excelled more at football because I devoted more of my time to it. I think I was recruited to play basketball by some like local D1 schools, and I think just because of my size, I was a natural point guard. But if I would have been like just leaned into basketball more, I feel like I could have. Even now, like I could pick up a ball and I'm all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it naturally came to me.
Where'd you end up playing?
What sport or school?
Both.
Oh, University of Buffalo. I started off at CW Post, which is like it's a smaller school in the state of New York, but Buffalo, like UB, we were in the MAC conference.
Okay.
So we got our asses kicked by like the Alabamas for like non-conference games. We would play Penn State every now and then. But yeah, we won a conference championship before, so that was pretty cool, the International Bowl. But for the most part, like college was, for me, it was like the entry point into like the things that I always wanted for myself. And then you get them and you're like,
yeah. Do you think this kind of seems to be a common trend with people I know that played sports in college, where it's so intense. It's like your whole existence, because you're grinding through high school. That's like the ultimate goal is to get to that college level.
Right.
Then you get there, and it almost seems like it kind of takes the fun away because it's just so intense.
Yeah, I think I loved it.
Really?
Like I like to compete. Like I like to compete. There's a part of me deep down inside that like I love a little competition. Like yeah. And I think being from New York City, you know, I feel like this is what they don't tell you when you get recruited. They don't tell you that once you sign and you get on the field and it's practice, your coaches are using that profile that they have on you to talk shit about you. Like, look at Dugger from New York City. They don't even have grass over there. You know, what are you going to do today, huh? Show me something. Put you on the concrete with a basketball. Like, they would say shit like that. And, but I was one of those dogs where, like, you talk about me, man, I was just going to bite somebody. Like, it's cool. Somebody going to get their ass kicked today. So I enjoyed competing. I think what my learning experience was in college was I need to be a little bit more responsible. Like, I was having too much fun. Like, I had 4 girlfriends. You know what I mean? Like a week.
I mean,
like it was.
Get it while you can, I guess.
Listen, I'm listen, man. The fact that I'm not a dad today is like amazing because I was active. Like I was an irresponsible kid who was a late bloomer. Like I didn't realize I was cute until I got to college. Like I was like, girls like me. Like I'm not ugly. Like they want to fuck me. Like it was wild.
Yeah.
And I think in part because in high school, you know, I got 3 older sisters. They would tease me all the time. Like, you ugly, you stink, go take a bath, like all the time. Like, so in your brain, you start to think like, oh, I'm ugly. Like, nobody looking at me. And then I want to say I got to college, man, and like, you know, you're a freshman, but I don't look like it. I'm 6'5", you know what I mean? I got muscles, right? I got tattoos. And girls looking at me, and I'm over here like, and then I'm thinking I was one of those kids who thought that because a girl liked me, that like they loved me. It was like, nah, bro, they like everybody. It's okay. Like, just because they like you don't mean they want to be with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, they might just want to hang out, have a good time, and like, that's it. So college, I think I got a little sidetracked. When I say a little, I'm being like general, or giving myself grace when I say that. But like, yeah, college was a wild time for me. And I think once I reeled it in, because I recognized that like that good time was at the sacrifice of the things that when I got into college, I really wanted. Like, I wanted to be a pro athlete. I wanted to like go to the league. I wanted to be on the cover of Wheaties and the Nike commercials and all the things. And then, life and being immature and not having, at the time I didn't have like mentors and people in my ear. And then by the time I did, I felt like I knew everything. Like I was the kid who was smart and talented, but at the time I wasn't smart enough to know that I wasn't that smart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so that was a learning opportunity, but you know, figured it out eventually.
Yeah, that's tough. It's I mean, when you have, you know, maybe some genetic gifts and you can kind of get through sports and school with like,
right.
I'm not saying you didn't try hard, but like it might be easier for some people than others. And then sometimes you get that slap in the face. It's like, shit, I got to get my shit together.
Listen, I was the kid who was naturally athletic, but who needed to do everything right.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't like a 5-star. Like I was good. Like I ran, like, you know, 4.4 in college. I mean, high school and college. Like, I was athletic. I was good, but I wasn't the guy who was everyone's unanimous pick to be like the guy. It was like, oh, this kid, he could play, right? But I had to do everything right, and I just wasn't.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I'm going out. And then like I didn't drink. I was the kid who I didn't drink.
Oh, really?
I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. Like to this day, that's just not my thing.
What's the decision there? Like what causes that?
Growing up, man, like my dad was an addict.
Yeah.
And then on my mom's side of the family, it was a bunch of alcoholics. Like everybody just was too many substances around, if you ask me. But in that, it was never like a judging people for doing it. I think I saw all my teammates doing it. And I was like, that's gonna be my advantage. Like that's gonna be the reason why, like, you're gonna go out on a Friday night or a Tuesday night, I have a shitty Wednesday practice, and I'm gonna be the reason because I'm gonna kick your ass and you gonna be hungover. Great.
Yeah.
Like, so for me, it worked. The thing that I was though, like I said, I was a lover boy. Like I was the kid who like would stay in his room playing Madden, have my girlfriend over, you know what I'm saying, be hanging out with her.
Yeah.
And then like look at my schoolwork and be like, oh shit, I got work to do. Like it was, oh fuck, like oh damn, okay, cool. I just do my work. So I do my work. Oh shit, I'm running late for study hall or for film or something like that. Like it was always stupid shit. It was nothing like, I wasn't one of those like troublemakers. I didn't get arrested. I wouldn't do anything like egregious, but like I just was I was an immature kid with like priorities were a little off. Like I'd rather be on a date with my girlfriend and play Madden and then like get in the weight room and get after it. But then like, oh shit, I forgot to submit that paper on time. Like it was always some little stupid shit. And it's just like priorities. Like I just wasn't locked in.
Yeah, I feel like college is the time to do that though. Because it's like nobody expects you to have it all figured out.
Right.
It's a time, it's really probably the first time you're truly independent.
Yeah.
There's not somebody bossing you around telling you what to do. It's like you either show up or you don't.
Right.
And I think the biggest difference obviously is like if you have the awareness to recognize those things and figure it out on your own.
It took me a lot of hiccups. Like I want to say I had to fuck up maybe like 2 or 3 times, like majorly, to like, okay, lock in, focus. Like I am the architect of my own like destruction or like downfall at least. So if I clean this up, things get a lot better. And I would say that it panned out for me. Like I'm fortunate enough that I didn't come out of undergrad with any like serious like blemishes or like life scarring, like traumatic like things that happened that made me say, man, like that impacted me for the rest of my life in a negative way. Yeah. You know, like regardless of like the learnings and like the pitfalls, I felt like at the end of it, I was able to look myself in the mirror and be like, yo, it's my fault because I did this. Yeah. And I think I feel really good now about the fact that like I was able to navigate it because I think the reason why I feel like I'm a good coach is because for a number of years, I was a bad one. Yeah. You know, the reason why I think I'm a mature adult now is because for a number of years, I wasn't. So just had to learn from things.
Did you play all 4 years?
Nah.
In school?
Nah, only 3.
3?
Yeah.
Did you finish out school there though? Mm-hmm. Like study? You said philosophy?
Yeah.
Dang. Do you use any of that schooling now?
So I would say in my writing, I do. I've always been like a student and a learner. My mom, I'm dyslexic. So like, it's like this learning disability. You just process information differently.
Yeah.
And my mom, very early on, was just like, you got to read a lot of books. I just got to read. You got to keep your brain working. Got to stay sharp. And I feel like because of that, it's like really, really helped me. I think in my older years, I've just learned like really hard for me to pay attention for long periods of time. So I got like an evaluation, like an IEP, and I learned I had ADD. And I was like, oh shit, like cool. But I didn't like the way meds made me feel.
What they gave you, like Adderall?
Yeah, it was. It's not gonna work. Yeah. I will say, I know some people who take Adderall when they run.
Really?
They say great things.
Interesting.
I can't vouch for it.
I'm too afraid to even test it.
I don't want to know. I tried it. I was like, oh no, I'm not doing this. But yeah, I feel like for me, simple things like having a widget, like right now, like I'm taking my hand and I'm like rubbing it here. It helps me pay attention and focus for long periods of time. But I think once I realized that I love to read and I love to learn, but more importantly than that, like I love to like test shit out. I was like, coaching is definitely the thing for me. Cause I'm the kind of person that I'll learn information, I'll read some information, and I'm as curious as I am critical. Like I'll read, I'm like, try this out. Like word, like I don't know how many times since we've known each other have I probably text you about cordyceps or freaking like black currants and something like that.
I can tell you're curious.
Yeah, like I'm like, what? Did
you end up getting the cordyceps?
I did.
Okay, nice.
I did. I mean, it was funny. I had some already, but I think I give you a lot of credit, Jeremy. You do a great job of like reviewing things. And I think you do it from a standpoint of like not like, hey, do this because I said so. It's more like, I tried it. It worked for me. Give it a shot.
Right.
And I appreciate the objectiveness of it. Like, you're not like forcing cordyceps down people's throat every time you post, you know? Like some creators, I feel like their content is very much, you can just tell it's pay for play almost.
Yeah.
And I feel like with you, mainly it's you and you talking about your experience, your journey. And even from the standpoint of like, I don't feel like you're trying to promote yourself as like this guru coach. Like, you're telling people like, hey, I started running a few years ago. This is what I did. This is some of the mistakes I made early on. This is where I'm at now. This is how I got there. And like, take from that what you will. You know what I mean? Like, and I really appreciate just like the honesty of it. But for me, yeah, man, I try to like be curious and like learn, because I'm just a nerd at heart. Like, I've always got questions in my brain about things. But I think part of it is just rooted in the fact that like I want to know for like my personal like approach and practice. But others is like, I got clients, people who rely on me to be like an expert or just a guide. Yeah. And it's like, it's important to have perspectives that are not rooted in bias. They're not rooted in my own ego. It's very much about like, hey, I done fucked up a lot. I've learned a lot. This is what I learned. Do with it what you will, you know? Like, so it's been great. It's been great.
Yeah. I honestly, my favorite coaches growing up were people who did the thing that I was trying to do. And I knew they had the experience. Right. And they just said, this is how I did it. This is what worked for me. Right. I mean, I didn't read like a whole bunch of books and take classes and get all these certificates, which is good too. Right. But my favorite coaches were the people who did the thing. Did the work, yeah. I mean, I agree. I think there's valuable information to be learned in these books and these, you know, articles and these conferences and people and gurus and stuff. But at the end of the day, man, like, talk to me about the guy who did it. Yeah. Talk to me about the woman who sacrificed some shit, who lost some stuff along the way, who really put their foot down and leaned into their practice and whatever it was. That's where the story's at. Right. That's where like the real inspiration is going to come from. So I agree with you. What was your first coaching job? Do you remember? Absolutely. I was volunteering. I was at Fort Hamilton High School, which I'm an alum at. And it might be like 2011, 2010. And yeah, I hated it. What sport was it? Football. Yeah. My second coaching job was AAU basketball. Why'd you hate the first coaching job so much? I hated it because I knew that the infrastructure around what the kids were experiencing was the reason why the kids were having that experience. Like, I knew that there was a lot going on. You know, it's like, as an adult, man, like, this is some shit you get privy to, and you're like, oh, this is fucked up. Yeah. But the kids are dealing with is just a byproduct of that, but they don't know that. What were some of those things? Like the head coach being a substitute teacher and not being like a full-time teacher at the school. Oh, interesting. Yeah, like it was a lot of like New York City Board of Education politics, like just stupid shit. And then like other coaches who like were on like the roster, but like they didn't really have a background in coaching, or they weren't like even have a bachelor's. It's just stuff like that. Like, it was just like, okay. Sounds like a mess. It was. It really was. And then also it's like, I'm getting poached by like principals, assistant principals. Like, you want this job? You want this job? And I'm over here like, I don't want to teach, bro. Because it's not like, I know in some places, the head coach just coaches. Yeah. That's it. And I know like New York City, like, you are a teacher and you coach. And you get paid to teach. And you get a little extra, like a stipend, an extra bonus to coach. But for me, I didn't want to be in the classroom. Like, I love kids. I love coaching, rather. I don't want to have to teach math, science, English, history. None of it. Yeah. Like, one class every other week, maybe. But other than that, I won't be on the field. Maybe a gym teacher. But even that, like, the level of education that they require you to have to be a gym teacher these days, like, you got to get a master's. I'm not going to school for 8 years to tell kids to play with basketballs and footballs. Like, in New York State, in New York City specifically, they want you to be, like, there's just so few schools and so many teachers that it's just really, really competitive. It's not as simple as like, hey, we like you, you went to school here, you're a great coach, you know football, here's a full-time job. Like, it don't work that way. So it's part of the reason why a lot of these high school coaches are around for 15, 20 years. It's because, like, they probably spent 5 of them trying to get a solid job. Then once they got a solid job, they decided to coach. But then once they started coaching, they were like, I'm not letting this go. Yeah. Busting my ass to make this money. So yeah, that was
That was part of it.
Yeah.
And I think once I learned that, I was like, again, cool. This is great, like for some people, but for how I want to coach and the impact I want to have, I'm just not going to limit it to being like a high school coach. Like it was too many like loopholes to go through. Then when I got to collegiate level, it was the same thing.
Really?
Like I was at a college in Mount St. Vincent. I was an assistant and I was director of strength and conditioning, but at D3, you are an assistant coach and then you get like paid and then you can get like another title and get paid for that too. So I was like an assistant coach on the basketball team, but I was also the strength coach for the basketball team.
Okay.
And yeah, man, like you think like high school is to an extent, like coaches ain't making that much money and their compensation is not tied to performance. So for the most part, it's like they do give a fuck.
What's the incentive?
What, for high school coaching?
Well, I mean, it's like if it's like your team wins or loses and you're getting paid the same, it's
Right.
like, why does it matter?
Right. Exactly. And to that point, it's like you probably have a coach who cares.
Yeah.
Like not all the time, but traditionally speaking, if your high school coach is like leaning in year after year and they're really like pouring into these kids because they want to win. And that's important.
Right.
College, it's a business. My livelihood. So if you don't get the job done, somebody else will.
Yeah.
And I think at D3, because most D3 schools, they're not scholarship based. So a lot of the kids are basically walk-ons. They're playing for the love. But if you can develop talent and you can get them to win a few games, that is the leverage you need to go on to another school.
Yeah.
And I would say that most coaches, I don't know a good coach who don't have an ego. So you
Really?
give any, I don't know a good coach who don't have an ego. I don't know a good coach who doesn't look at a roster with talent and say, give me a shot. I bet I could do something with it. You know? So when I was there, it wasn't a bad experience, but I very much learned firsthand that like this is a business. Like I experienced it on the player side as a college athlete, but now I'm on the coaching side and I'm like, oh, like this is Game of Thrones. You know what I mean? Like this is
Is it that intense?
Yeah, it really, because like most, not all, but there are people out there who when they take a job, they're taking it for the opportunity to get another one.
Yeah.
They're not taking it to want to be the greatest Hall of Fame coach at this school's history.
Right.
They're taking it because they want to go to Rutgers or they want to go to Syracuse or, another major program where they're going to make more money, get more responsibility, and, move up the ranks. And I can't fault somebody for having that. But I think, again, what I realized was I'm part of a system that inherently doesn't do a good job of like supporting the growth of the athlete. Like it just doesn't. Like it's about the business. Like it's the reason why even in collegiate sports now, like Caitlin, what's her last name?
I don't know.
Girl at Iowa. She could play. I forget her name. Caitlin Phillips.
Okay.
Right? You don't watch basketball?
Not really.
I was like, okay.
That was like the one sport I never really got into because hockey is my main sport and it's the same season.
Got it. Yeah, yeah. So it's a lot of
basketball.
Yeah, time. But yeah, Caitlin Phillips, she's like the face of women's basketball right now, like hands down. And great.
I do watch March Madness every year though.
Okay, yeah.
I got that.
Right. So yeah, she's a great athlete. But yeah, I would imagine that like if she wasn't as good as she is, like there's not opportunities for like in college because your coach's performance is tied to their job. You have too many consecutive losing seasons. Your team's not progressing and like winning games year after year. Yeah, man. Like at every level, you would be out of a job real fast. So the performance of your athletes, like I bring up Caitlin because I think she shot 5 for 16. But it's like if I'm the coach and that's my best player, guess what? And she's normally on, but today she's off. Well, she's got the bandwidth to be off then because her playing well or me sitting her can impact my livelihood. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to bench her.
Yeah.
I'm going down with my best player. I get it. Like, not only for the sake of winning, but also for the sake of like my livelihood.
Yeah, that's a
right?
tough situation.
Like, it's tied to it. Yeah. So
so you coached, you said AAU?
AAU, yep. Well,
Is AAU?
AAU.
AA, okay.
AAU.
Is this college level?
No, AAU is like amateur. Like
okay.
like basically like from middle school all the way up to high school.
Okay.
Yeah. So I coached AAU basketball. I coached high school football. When I got to college, I also did cross country. And then I've had like some moments with celebrities. I've done a bunch of brand stuff over the years. But I would say for the most part, like my formative years as a coach happened because of AAU basketball. Like I feel like that's what made me a good coach, and not just like another guy swinging his dick around telling people to fucking like get on the line and work hard and push through. It's like, bro, anybody could do that. Like,
yeah, you probably had to, like you said, unlearn a lot of things and probably learn a whole bunch of new shit too.
Patriarchy in sports is a real fucking thing. Like it really is. Like you can, and what people don't understand is that you can have a toxic, problematic, or like harmful coach and a phenomenal athlete, and the coach gets a lot of credit. You know, like like Bobby Knight was a jerk.
Yeah.
He was also a great coach. He won a lot of games. He helped other coaches be great. But Bobby Knight couldn't coach if I had a kid, he couldn't coach my kid. And I wouldn't want him to coach a lot of other people's kids, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But was Bobby Knight responsible for supporting other great current basketball coaches who went on to do great things? Absolutely. So it's like, you know, I think for me, it's less about indicting somebody like Bobby Knight and more about how do I just coach differently, right? And create a more holistic environment where kids and athletes and people, right, are supported in their overall growth journey and their performance as an athlete. But when they get off the field, they don't walk around with this level of entitlement or a level of aggression and like a lack of like tone and awareness, so that they can move in and out of social settings and like enjoy life and like not be a threat or not intimidate and or like just be an asshole to people, right? Like,
yeah,
because I don't know, man. I don't know if I want to ever grab dinner with Bobby Knight.
Probably not.
Like, got grabs his soul, like, you know what I'm saying? R.I.P. to Bobby Knight. But like, damn, like he was a mean dude, bro. Like,
yeah,
fiery, competitive. He was a jerk.
It reminds me of like Steve Jobs a little bit.
Yeah,
it's like super asshole.
Yeah,
but
brilliant.
Built the biggest company in the world. It's
you
like
know?
It's not necessary,
right?
But it might help to some extent, maybe.
I don't know that it's possible to ever be liked by everybody, and I don't think anybody should ever, you know, go on to try to be liked by everybody.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important though is that we understand that like there are people attached to these athletes, there are people attached to these performances, and like we deal with the person always and not just what they want to do and what they want to accomplish. Because you're right. I can motivate you to reach a goal by talking to you a certain way. But once that goal is achieved or not, or after that moment is passed, do you still have your dignity? Do you still feel loved and respected and valued? Do you feel like I give a fuck about you as a person? And I think I've learned that in coaching adults, it's really, really important to ensure that like that person is seen and feels like experienced and like cared for, not just because they ran really fast. Because ultimately it's like you're more than just somebody who runs fast. You know what I mean? You're more than just somebody who lifts really heavy. Like there's a person behind all of that. And it's really important for me anyway to get to know that person so I can really lean in when it's time to coach them.
100%. I love that.
Yeah.
So then was it after the coaching girls basketball, started working with Nike?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are you still with Nike?
Yeah.
What's that experience been like?
It's been cool. It's been cool. I laugh all the time because I feel like something happened during COVID where like Peloton took off.
Yeah.
And like now like Peloton's instructors are like damn near like celebrities at this point. Like you walk around, I was like, oh my God, that's so and so. And you're like, who? What? I never took class. I wouldn't know. But yeah, man, I've been with the brand. I did an event. Honestly, it's probably like March of 2020, right before COVID hit. I did an event and there was a rep there. And she came up to me after the event and was like, yo, we're always looking to add quality coaches to our roster. And like, I really enjoyed the way that you facilitated that event. Like,
what were you doing at the time? Was it like personal training or?
I mean, I've been a running coach and a trainer for over 10 years.
Okay.
But I just wasn't doing it at the brand. And it was one of those things where, you know, I've never not had confidence in my ability as a coach. I just never felt like I needed to tell it. Like I didn't invest much into storytelling around what I did as a coach. Like I would post on social, I was active, but I didn't understand like the depths and the nuances, even like the technical elements of like first 3 seconds of a post got to be something catchy, right? Like that stuff just wasn't a priority. I wasn't aware of it. So I think around the time that I was approached by the brand, COVID hit. And when COVID hit, that was my opportunity to kind of lean in to being a better storyteller. Like that was when I was like, okay, I got to sit here. I got a number of time on my hands, can't go nowhere, right? how do I scale as a storyteller? How do I grow as a storyteller with the intention of having impact on people's lived experiences? And yeah, I would say the Nike stuff got paused for a while because, you know, it's COVID, like couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And then when 2022 came around, they had like a long run New York City marathon training program for like everyone in the New York City area. And got an opportunity to coach. I think that same year, Black Panther 2 came out. And I trained some folks on the cast.
I saw that.
Yeah.
That's
and I had a reel that got like 14 million views. It was crazy. Like it was, the numbers are wild.
What was the reel? Do you remember?
It was a loop. It was like a 6 to 7 second video of me training one of the actors. And like he's a big guy.
Was it the
M'Baku.
What's the actor's name? Is it
Winston Duke? Yeah. So Winston was exactly, it was him. And it's clips of me like with him in the pool, with him on the treadmill, him with his shirt off, running with a chain swinging, like all the things, but it's me coaching him. And it's this little chant from the movie that his tribe did. And I looped it for 6 seconds. I never forget. It got like 15,000 hits and then it went quiet. Then like, at the time I probably had like 15,000 followers, maybe 10,000, somewhere in that range. Then like 2 weeks went by. All of a sudden, I'm getting like 20,000 followers. I look at the video, it's got like 100,000. Well, no big deal. Over a weekend, I went from like 15,000 to like 75,000.
Whoa.
Then it went from like 100,000 to like 2 million. I was like, oh shit. Maybe 2 weeks, I went from 75,000 to 150,000. And then the video went from like 2 million to like 10 million.
Jeez.
Somebody at Marvel called me and was like, hey, Percell, this is the best performing content of like all the things that we created for the movie. Like we put paid behind this stuff. Like we shot $1 billion cameras and production. And this little piece of video
6 seconds
that took you less than 5 minutes to make, right? But just you and organic content of you training him and this little audio clip is the highest like performing content on social right now for the movie.
That's nuts.
I was like, shit, I guess all that storytelling, like growth, you know, paying off. And then
so relatable.
Yeah. And I think, but what was interesting about that was someone from Meta reached out to me because they were like, hey man, like, you know, I was in this creative program called We the Culture. And it was like an incubator program where they teach you about like best practices on social for like Facebook and Instagram. But one of them called me and said, hey Percell, like, I don't think you understand the magnitude of this. People go viral, you know, however many times a day on the platform. That's one thing. He was like, to go viral and to get a lot of followers from it.
Yeah.
It means that the strategy that you had implemented beforehand and the things that you were associated with beforehand drew a level of interest. And again, it's like, as a marketer or a storyteller, what you understand is like, it's a funnel. Awareness is the biggest and like step one. And that was a huge awareness play for me. Like so many people became aware of me and my practices and my approach as a coach. And they saw quality. They were like, he's a Nike guy, trained this celebrity for this movie. Oh, his content is really good. It's resourceful. He's not a dick. Like, I'll follow him.
Yeah.
So I think my next like goal, because what I've learned about the algorithm is that like you'll get a lot of them, then you'll lose some. You get a lot of them, and you'll lose some.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do I continue to grow my audience? And yeah, man. Honestly, I think that's how I got served your content.
Really?
It was after I went viral. Because, you know, when you look at my page, it's like blue check verified, you know, over 100K followers, a lot of running and fitness content. Like when I got like recommended or suggested follows, like you were one of them. But it just so happened that when I checked it out, I was like, oh, this dude's cool. Because I ain't gonna lie, man. Running is super accessible. There's so many people who do it.
Yeah.
I just don't think everybody's interested. Yeah. And not like good or bad. It's just like when I watch their stuff, I don't go, I want to pay attention to more of this. I don't want to scroll more. It's just like, okay, cool.
Right.
Got it. Like you run with your shirt off and you like run.
Yeah.
Great.
There's so many people out there like that.
Right. Everybody. Like, it's like, okay, well, fine. Like, so yeah, that's how I got served your content. And yeah, I want to say the New York City Marathon program for 2022, I got the call for it, I want to say in spring of 22. And then I knew like the movie was coming up. And I was like, I've been learning all this stuff for this Facebook program I've been in, or this Meta Instagram program I've been in. I'm finna put all it to the test. I'm going to test it out on the Nike content I'm posting and creating. I'm going to test it out with this Black Panther stuff I know that's coming. And then I also just knew that like I have my own events that I do around like supporting health outcomes of like marginalized groups. So I was like, I'm gonna take all of these learnings and just continue to amplify and support and tell as many stories around like movement and fitness and why it's important. And like, it worked.
Dude, have you reposted that video since that original one that got like?
I did when it was the anniversary of the movie coming out. So the movie came out in 22. I posted it in November of 23. And I was like, oh, like 1 year since, and it still got like 50, 60,000. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy.
Dude, because the reason I ask is whenever I have a post go viral, like over, 1 million views or something, I'll repost it like 6, 8, 12 months later. And it does good.
Yeah.
Maybe usually not as good as that first time.
Right.
But it, that reassures to me, like good content is good content.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if people have seen it before. It doesn't matter like the trending audio you use or if it's like the hashtags. It's like,
yeah,
a good piece of content is a good piece of content.
Period.
Yeah. That's sick though, dude.
Yeah.
So did that viral clip, that it sounds like it kind of put you on the map a little bit more, like brought more awareness to you and your business and coaching and everything?
Yeah. I would say so. I feel like it was for me, like I've had cool things happen before that. Like before that, I was on the cover of Self magazine with a bunch of other like trainers during 2020, which was like, it was cool, but like that was like a game changer. Yeah. Like that moment was a game changer. And I think because of that moment, all the learnings I had leading up to it, that not just like brand partners, not just like, potential clients, but like just like the industry as a whole started to say, oh, this guy's actually like knows what the fuck he's talking about. Like, so I think from that standpoint, it worked out really well. And then, yeah, man, I think in my just development and like learning as a coach, I continue to meet cool people. I build relationships with them, and then, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. How'd you get connected with some of the people on Black Panther to begin with?
I went to college with Winston.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So like, and funny enough, it wasn't like we were best friends in college, like hanging out together every day. We met one summer. He was really cool, smart, interesting dude. We just like had a lot of things in common. And then, social media, like he went on to go to grad school. I went on to like travel and move and work, and we just stayed in touch via social. And then he would come into town, and every time he came into town, like we would meet up. And when we would meet up, we would just hang out, kick it. And I never forget, he was on a press run for this Netflix movie he did with Mark Wahlberg called Spencer Confidential.
Oh yeah.
And he came into town and he was like, yo, all right, boom. So start filming, Black Panther 2, boo. Like, what do you need to do to like make this happen? And I was like, I need that. And I'm your guy. And he was like, bet. And then I kid you not, like a month later, COVID hit.
Oh.
And I was like, okay.
Damn.
And then to his credit, he knew that it was important for him to continue training. Like I didn't have to go find him. He reached out to me and said, hey, I want to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do and exercising like in the crib, in my garage. Like I'll buy weights, I'll get a treadmill, I'll do all the things, but like I don't want to wait till 22 or whenever this stuff gets lifted to start like getting in shape. So that's what we did. We were training virtually on FaceTime and on Zoom, just like getting after it. Like, and we did that for almost a year.
Really?
And then come the summer of 22, I never forget, I moved into a new place in July, like July 1st. I'm lying. I moved into, because July 1st of 2022 was like a weekday. The 4th of July was like a Saturday or a Sunday, one of the two. I never forget that I moved July 3rd. Celebrate the 4th of July, still moving some stuff in, because like when you got a lot of stuff, it's probably gonna be a 2-day thing.
Right.
The 5th, I was on a plane. So like I packed my stuff up, put it all down, and was like, peace. It was in Atlanta. I was living out of a hotel room.
That's sick.
I was in Atlanta for like 4 or 5 months. Like,
that's where they're filming everything?
Yeah. Tyler Perry Studios down in Atlanta.
Okay.
I never forget, like, it was, and I had like this, like, well, I still live there now, but I had like this nice place, really tall windows. I'm in Harlem, and I'm like, I'm packing these bags. Like, I got a couch, no bed. Fuck it. I'm going to Atlanta, sleeping in bed. I'll figure it out when I get back. And it worked.
Dang.
It worked. I was down there. I met some really, really dope, amazing, cool people. In fact, there are people who I met on set during that who are like my friends now. Like when I go to LA after this, like when we're done recording, I catch a flight to LA. I'm teaching a class tonight, actually.
Oh shit.
And after I teach this class, I'm running the LA Marathon this weekend, and people who I met, who are now like based in LA, but I met them in Atlanta during Black Panther 2, who've all like grown and their careers have progressed similar to mine. Like we're all like best friends.
Dude, that's sick.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Damn. Did you get to meet who was the dude that passed away?
Chadwick.
So
he passed before they started production.
Okay, because he's not in part 2.
Yeah,
right?
no, he's not.
Okay.
He's not. Well, he is, but not like him. Like it's like
CGI or something.
Nah, it's like just like old footage of like the previous movie, like these like memories and like flashback shots and like scenes. But like he's actually not in the movie, no.
Okay, I haven't seen the second one yet. The first one was so good.
Oh, you got it. The second one is better.
Really?
Second one's bro. Second one's good.
Okay, the first one was good.
Nah, the second one is. Second one's good.
Okay.
Like, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little biased, but when you see Winston, like he was big in the first one, he's jacked in the second one.
Well, I mean,
like, he's like,
thanks to you.
I mean, somebody had to do it. You know what I mean? Somebody had to do it.
That's dope, dude.
I had a blast, and not to mention, it's like that's like a once. There was a lot of awareness around the movie. 1, because it's Black Panther 2. 2, because of Chadwick's passing.
Yeah.
And then 3, it's a fucking Marvel movie, bro. So to be able to say you trained someone who is, you know, has a very prominent role in one of the biggest movies of like a moment, it's a big deal.
That's
it's
so
a big
cool.
deal. I had a blast, man. I kid you not, there are like you just never like unexperienced that. Like I've been a part of some cool things, I've been some cool places, I've done some cool stuff in my life. That was like top tier.
Yeah.
As good as it gets.
Yeah, that's such a cool experience.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff did you have him do to get him so jacked?
You know what's crazy? I tell people all the time, like, there's no new information out there. Right. Like everyone thinks there's like this, like if you take this pill, if you do zone 2, if you get a mask, if you get like, it's like, bro, like, yeah, like because if all the programs were good and all the workouts worked, then everybody who just did the thing would be in great shape and phenomenal, and you know, heart disease wouldn't be a thing. But like in terms of like how to navigate it, like people would be having more success. But in reality, it's like it really comes down to programming. Like I think I recognize as a coach that like what I can bank my hat on is programming. Like if I have enough information and data in terms of like the profile of person I'm dealing with. So like, you know, he did a really good job of having like his blood work done, knowing what he was allergic to, knowing like his glucose levels and like his heart rate and like all that stuff, like the data, he would just give it to me. And I'm like, all right, bet. So this is what we got to do. We had this one device where like it would basically, you know those devices that tell you like your glucose is high, so you should do this. Right. Your not your cortisone levels, but what's the other one? I forget. But it's like basically it tells you what type of workout you should do in that moment based upon like how your
recovery and stuff.
Yeah. So we would use that a lot. Nice. But for the most part, man, like he was doing a lot of zone 2, some threshold work. And yeah, I was talking about strength training. I think what people don't understand about bodybuilders is that bodybuilders are great at periodization. Like they know from volume to load to like range of motion and like joint angles. Like they understand how to how to attack tissue in every way possible to get like a very singular like outcome. Right. So for me, it was like his role is to be like this big like gorilla, like kind of like strong like figure. I'm not about to like try to cut 30 pounds off of you. Like that's just crazy. Like just get you bigger. Like let's make you big. Like I know some people are like, oh, well, I'm like, bro, no. You supposed to look like a silverback, big, you know what I mean? Colossal like individual. All right, let's get bigger. So, you know, it was funny because I think everyone, oh, what you eat? What's your diet? What do you gotta do? And it's like that stuff matters. Like it does. Like if you eat Chick-fil-A at 3 a.m, I don't know. But at the same time, it's like, you got to get in the gym, bro. Yeah. You got to get in the gym. You got to look at 100-pound dumbbells and say, make them heavier. You know? You got to look at like, I would say the typical program per movement, you probably get, in terms of like hypertrophy, you probably want to hit like 60 reps. I'd be like, let's get 100. I want 100. Like our volume.
Per movement?
Yeah. Like I wasn't playing.
That's a ton.
Yeah. He was drenched. And now, I was mindful that I didn't want him to get hurt because rule number 1 is don't get hurt. Yeah. Rule number 2 is follow rule number 1. And I would say what I recognized that like we had to change like joint angles just for like safety purposes, but also, you know, you change the angle of a joint, you attach or attack or stimulate a different head or area of the tissue.
Right.
That was important. But also like, yeah, load. Like every day he wasn't lifting, you know, 80, 90% of his 1 rep max. We used to stay within like that 50 to like 75% range.
Just a ton of reps.
Yeah, but he was tired.
Damn.
He was tired. And I want to say on the days where
I'm tired just thinking about it.
Yeah. I mean, we had some long sessions, man. Like we were leaning in. But that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Like it's not like he's training for a role and like he's gonna wear his clothes and you're not really gonna see his physique. Like my job was to not just like get him in shape for that role, but also like there's a lot of stunts and fight scenes and jumping off this and jumping off that. He was doing a lot of wild shit, and my job is to make sure that like all this stuff when you're on set and you jumping off. There was a scene that he jumps in. Oh, you didn't see it, but there's a scene where he jumps off like almost like a bridge. It's a good like a few hundred feet down into water, and he's got to swim. And it's like,
don't they have stunt doubles for that?
Yeah, they did. But like, what I learned in Hollywood is that the guy who like it's always better when talent does it. Like it's less time. You ain't got to reshoot a bunch of shit.
Right.
It's like if talent's okay to do it, fuck it, do it. If you don't want to do it, cool. But there are moments where like if talent does it, like it's the best outcome.
Yeah.
So I say that to say, but there's people on that set who got hurt. You know, I think my job is like, for as great as I want him to look, I want him to be safe. I want him to be bulletproof. If he falls off of something, if he slips, if he gets hurt, if I don't know, like he just bumps something, that like he is indestructible.
Yeah.
And I think like mission accomplished, because it's not so much about just getting them in shape. They put these actors through a lot on set, and I would argue that like there's no one really there to advocate for them. Like if they want you to do something, everybody's kind of looking at you like, you gonna do it?
Dang, that's intimidating.
Yeah, it can be. It can be on set. Like that's why like a lot of like the higher paid, more notable actors have like infrastructure around. They have a team. They have an agent. They have a lawyer. They got an assistant. They have all these people to make sure that they're protected within this bubble. Because when you're on set, you're not a priority. The priority is getting the shot.
Yeah,
we're gonna do whatever we need to do to get the shot. So like, get the fuck up, get out the way. Next, like, so yeah, man. My job, like, I was his trainer. But more importantly than that, like my job was to keep him safe. And it was to ensure that what we were doing in the weight room transferred over to a level of like functional indestructibility. They go to trainer word I made up just now. But yeah, transferred
trademark
over. It. Exactly, right? Like USPT, whatever, .org or some shit. But yeah, it did that. So that was cool. I think it challenged me because we're in a hotel gym. Like we're not at like some private like boutique, like, you know, exclusive. We were in a hotel gym like everybody else.
For the whole training?
Yeah, they had a gym on set, but the thing about schedules is when you get on set, you're on set. You gotta get your hair, you gotta get your makeup, you gotta do all this shit. Like, you know, mic you up and do all the things. It's like, bro, I don't got time for this. Like, now I've been on set for 6 hours of a day. You want him to go to this gym over here on this part like this, you want to go back to his room, bro.
Yeah.
So
have you ever trained like that yourself, like that more bodybuilding style, just to like get massive?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely leaned into it before. I don't know. For me, it was like I just wanted to see what I look like. Like, I was like, I just want to see how this goes.
Who doesn't want to be huge?
Who doesn't want to be jacked? I mean, for me, like I've never had any like issues with I've always liked my own body, but I think I've always just been curious. Like, I wonder if I do curls as much as these guys do curls, will I look like them?
Yeah. You're just curious.
Yeah. But I think what I learned was, again, it's like the difference between bodybuilders and let's say other athletes is that their outcome or the goal is about aesthetics. We're going to do whatever we need to do to this tissue to get it to look a certain way, period. As an athlete, relative to like competitive sport that's movement based and not aesthetic based, it's like, oh, I have to be able to do this and move in this practice. And I think when I was training like a bodybuilder, I felt stiff as fuck. I just felt tight. I felt wound up. Like I just felt like, ugh. And then I think the eating component of it was just like, I didn't have time for it. Like, I'm cool.
Yeah.
Like if I see grilled chicken and broccoli one more time, I'm gonna fight somebody. Like, Get out of my face with these little rice cakes, bro. I want bread.
Yeah.
Like, real bread.
I like food too much to train like that.
Yeah, it's not gonna work.
And I like being functional.
Yeah.
I think for longevity purposes,
Yeah.
the athletic style of training is probably better.
Yeah.
Because it's how people move.
Yeah, I feel like I do know there's studies out there that talk about like as you age and bone density decreases, like traditional strength training is great for you.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like I don't know a bodybuilder, especially the ones who competed, who doesn't have a level of who didn't at times have an unhealthy relationship with food.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know any. Like everyone that I know who was a bodybuilder who competed, it was, their relationship with food at times could get really dark. And I think it just took a lot of joy out of it for me. It just wasn't fun. That's not, I don't enjoy starving myself or like limiting my calories. It's like, bro, I'm hungry. I want to eat.
Yeah.
You know?
How do you train now, personally?
I train like I would call myself like a bad bitch. I'm joking. I'm joking. I train like a athlete who runs.
Okay.
Like
That's
I train
a
like
bad bitch.
Yeah, it really is. The baddest. You know what I mean? The baddest. Yeah. I train like an athlete who runs. Like I think I don't skip like that.
Do athletes not run?
I think there's this whole thing about like, well, good storytelling, right? The hybrid athlete. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Fuck is that?
I hate that
It's
shit.
the dumbest shit ever. But
I literally hate it.
Yeah, when I say athlete who runs is that I think I know, like I'm running 5 marathons this year.
Yeah.
And it's my first year being healthy since like my last marathon, which was in 2018, 2019. So like, it's been a while.
6 years?
Yeah.
5, 6 years?
Been a minute. Just has been.
Yeah.
But the truth is that leading up to those previous stints between now and 2018, 2019, is that I kept getting hurt when I ramped up my volume. So like, as a coach, at least for me anyway, when one of my athletes gets hurt, the first thing I do is look at the programming. I go, where did I miscalculate? Where did I lean in too much? Did I advance us too far too soon? Did I not do enough in the time frame that I allotted? Did I do too much in this allotted time frame? Like, you can always look at your programming and pinpoint like where things kind of like went astray. And I think for me, it's been really important to like be objective about my own programming, even to a point of like hiring other people to observe it and like look at it for me and give me feedback on it. So I say that to say that it's been a game changer being able to program and then simultaneously learn from my programming and like let it inform how I train both on the track, on the road when I'm running, and in the weight room. So like one of the things I really liked about your content, you talked about how, man, I split my days up. Because initially when I would train, I would have total body gym days. It's like when I go in here and I do upper and lower body and then I try to run, I'm finished.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Like I'm finished. And what I've learned over the years is that like if I'm a runner, going into my day, the thing I want to be the best at and feel the closest to 100% is my runs.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm competing to do. If I was competing to play basketball, it'd be different.
Right.
I'm competing to run. So like, I'm always going to run first. Like I'm always going to run in the morning, get my run out the way, and then give myself a few hours, and then I'll lift later on that afternoon or later on that day. But yeah, for me, it's like the programming. Like the programming is really like where I feel really confident. Like as a coach, I know I'm smart. I can be articulate and think of bars and creative things to say to inspire people. But when it comes to programming, I know I just have a lot of confidence in my ability to inspire people, my ability to tell a story, and my ability to program for somebody. Like I just know I'm good at it because I fucked up so many times.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's the biggest teacher.
Yeah. It's like, I was really bad. That's why I got really good. I forgot what we were talking about. I'm sorry.
I was just asking like how you kind of train now. I'm curious. Obviously, like you're a bigger dude, 6'5".
Yeah.
Like running usually doesn't come super naturally.
No, it doesn't.
To bigger guys like yourself.
Yeah.
So like, how like what's maybe just like walks like a typical week of training for these 5 marathons this year?
Yeah. So I would say my week kind of starts. I count like my Sunday as like my day. So I got my long run in. I'm probably for my next marathon, I'll move to like a Saturday long run situation. But this past training cycle, Sunday was my long run. Monday was like an off day. Like Monday, like, I do like some light. When I say light recovery, I mean like yoga. I do some like prehab prep work. Like I work a lot on my hip capsule, like internal, external rotation, just because I used to have a lot of like calf problems. Like I used to get a bunch of strains. And initially it was like, oh, just like strengthen your posterior chain, like your hamstrings, your glutes, whatever, or your calves, obviously. But then I started doing more research, and what I've seen is that like you can get a lot of calf strings if you are not able to have good internal rotation of like your femur. So it's like, oh, and I leaned into it. Cool. Ankle mobility is a big thing for me. Like I'm 6'5", so like traditionally speaking, anthropometrically gifted people.
What does that mean?
Tall people.
Okay.
Anthropometrics is like the study that has to do with like the size or like length of your bones.
Oh, okay.
So like anthropometrically, I think it is, or promethically. I don't know. Anthropometrics has to do with like the size of your bones, length of your joints, and your bones. So like tall guy, traditionally speaking, like certain joints are more limited than others. So like traditionally tall people don't have great ankle mobility. So if I don't have great ankle mobility, but I'm a runner, and dorsiflexion is like important, but so is big toe mobility, I'm gonna make sure my big toe and my ankles are like solid.
What kind of stuff do you do for ankle mobility?
Typical like resistant band, like dorsiflexion holds, plantar flexion holds, rotations. I do a lot of, you take the band and you put it at like that connection of like your lower ankle, and you just like shift your knee forward. I do that a lot. But yeah, and then I'll sit on my big toes. Like I'll get into like a kneeling position and just like squat my butt to my heels with my toes underneath me and just sit there for like 90 seconds. And I'll do that like for as long as I need to do it. Maybe it feels uncomfortable after a while, but it helps with big toe mobility. And when you can, it's proven that like having good toe mobility or big toe mobility allows you to get more flexion and push off in your foot strike.
Really?
Yeah. So as your foot is like leaving the ground, this moment, like if you lack range of motion in this toe, you want to be as close to 90 degrees as possible. But if you lack more range of motion in this toe, you're kind of just not pushing off your toe in an optimal way.
Interesting. I don't ever hear people talk about that.
I mean, it's common. It's known. Like it's like a thing. Like people understand it. Like there's certain joints that you want them to be mobile, and you want to hit certain joint angles because they optimize like posture, if that makes sense.
Right.
But again, it's like, I don't necessarily need to be perfect. I just want to be close to it as possible. So if I can get some more range of motion in my ankle, some more range of motion in my toe, if I know how to run with a more neutral pelvis than like being super like anterior tilted, then like, I'll probably be better off in terms of like injury prevention.
Have you read The Science of Running by Steve Magnus?
Yeah.
Okay. I was going to say that book sounds like it's right up your alley.
Yeah.
It's kind of a textbook-ish.
It is. It's dense.
It's dry.
It is. It's like, what the fuck, bro? But I feel like in general, I don't care too much about people who say like, oh, you got to be like an efficient runner. Running 26.2 miles for however long, you're not always going to be efficient, bro.
Yeah.
But I think the idea is to be like as efficient as possible. Be efficient enough. Like my job as a coach and even as a runner, bro, I'm not trying to be perfect. Like I'm never going to be the ideal body type for anything. But my focus is to get as close to being optimal, so I'm not fucking myself up for 26.2 miles.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So what's the rest of your week look like?
So that's Monday. Tuesday, I'm getting after it. Like I'm waking up in the morning, that's when I do my speed days. So like I usually do a track workout. It's always threshold work. I don't do, like, how some people like, I don't know how everyone runs hard every day. I run hard 2 days a week.
That's more than enough.
Yeah, like 2 days a week. And I'll be honest with you, some weeks it might be one. Like in a down week, like it's one. But like most weeks, like I usually, when I build out training blocks, it's like a 4-week microcycle, and that 4th week is a down week every 4 weeks. So that 4th week, I'm taking my foot off the gas. But I usually do a track workout. And I would say relative to the race that I'm training for, is really going to dictate like the distances that I'm running.
Right.
Like if I'm running like I'm training for a marathon, I'm probably going to like a series of like 1Ks. If I'm like getting back into shape, I might make it 800s, right? Like, but if I'm already coming in pretty fit and I'm ready to go, I'm starting out with 1Ks. Probably going to go get up to, I might even do some 5K intervals at times. But like that's like ideal. Like I'm clicking at like a sub 7-minute pace at that point. But for the most part, I would say like somewhere in that range on a track day. And usually the way I like to think about my track workouts, one of the things I like to program into them is like technique under duress. So like, let's say I'm running, I love to do 300s instead of 400s because the straightaways allow you to like have like optimal technique instead of running a curve. So I'll run a 300 with a 100 recovery, but I won't take like that extremely long rest period. And it's because I want to practice running those straightaways with good technique and then kind of like know what it's like to focus on my technique when I'm fucking fatigued. Like how do I feel, right? How optimal, how efficient am I in terms of like my technique when I'm under duress? I only do that probably like in terms of that like approach in terms of like technique under duress. Probably I only do it probably like in the first two training blocks of my 16-week cycle, and I probably do it like once or twice.
Okay.
But track workout, that's just an example of one. My next day is like a zone 2 like active recovery day, probably 45 minutes to an hour on feet. That next day is another tempo run, so like less aggressive, but I'm also lifting on those days. So like my high days are my high days, so like I'm lifting and I'm running with some level of effort. My low days, I'm just chilling. Like I might do some prehab movement, mobility or whatever, and I'm just gonna run and get like a nice little minimum 45 minutes. Like if I run for less than 45 minutes, I promise you it was like, I don't know what I was doing, but I was I probably
doesn't feel like enough if you do less than that.
I feel like if I'm running for less than 45 minutes, either something's wrong, I'm warming up for something else, I ran somewhere to meet up with somebody, or I'm running with somebody who's like, we just hanging out. Like typically for me, like 45 minutes is like the minimum.
What do your leg days look like?
Oh, I get busy. I can show you. Like I got some shit on here, bro. I would say it depends because like on my posterior days, like when I'm RDLs, when I'm calf raises, when I'm glute bridges, even like rear foot elevated and I'm doing like an iso hold at the bottom and exploding up, but like my foot is directly underneath my knee. So I'm trying to light up my hamstrings. I feel like those days, I feel like shit afterwards. like interior stuff, like front squats, back squats, like, box jumps. I feel fine.
I'm the exact opposite.
Bro, when oh God, like I be feeling like shit. But I would say that like I typically try to, on my leg days, I typically try to like beat the fuck out of myself. Like I put myself in the dirt. Like I'm not gonna lie. But I think I do that in the first 2 like training blocks.
So
like,
first 8 weeks roughly.
Yeah, first 8 weeks I'm running and I'm like, fuck, I'm tight. But I always run the day, like before I lift. So typically, I get a good workout and I usually have a gap in there. Like I usually don't go right from a run directly to the gym and lift. Like I usually will run, like I have like a pre-run meal, something light, and then I'll run, come back. I won't even shower and change. I just like change my clothes or whatever, grab some food, recover, and then go back out and like get a lift in. And usually my run happens between like 7:30 and like 10 a.m. and my lift to happen around like 1. Okay. 1:30. Yeah.
And then what's the rest of the week look like? So that was Thursdays? You do the tempo?
Thursdays, yep. So Friday's another so Friday, give or take, depending on if my long run is Sunday, Friday I'm taking off. Okay. If my long run is Saturday, Friday I'm moving around again and I'll just take Sunday off. Okay. So it depends.
Yeah. Where did you learn all of this? Because obviously you don't train like this in football or basketball.
Yeah. So I never really, like I was on a running team or a crew in New York City. But like the coach I had, bro, he wasn't really like a hands-on guy. He was more like a vibes. He had a personality. He was smart. And I felt like he knew a lot in terms of running, but he didn't really like give me a lot to like learn from and work with. So I was one of these dudes, bro. Like I said, I've always been an epically curious guy. I wasn't waiting on nobody to tell me shit. Like I went and got the books. I went and purchased everything. Nice. I went to little seminars. But I think in my learning of that stuff, I kind of always questioned it. Like the USA track and field stuff, the RRCA or RCCA or whatever it's called, road running, so RRA.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like all of these different things, I think relatively speaking, when I was in college and I took like these exercise physiology classes, it was the same shit. Like it was just a more like condensed version. It was about endurance. It was almost like the CSCS exam, but like for like conditioning elements only. So yeah, I would just like look at that stuff and then say to myself, okay, like this is what the book says, but let me just like get around people who are competing at a high level. I have some friends who are like elite runners. Like they get paid by like the brands that like, you know, they're sponsored by. And I would talk to them about like their training. And one of the coolest things I ever learned was a lot of their coaches, they like never ran before. They like worked at a post office. They were like social workers. They were like teachers. They were like regular everyday people. One of them was like a pastor who just like got in the track and field because he just wanted something for his daughters to do. But like I learned very quickly. I was like, oh, so like it's like, you know, to your point earlier, a lot of people want to be motivated by somebody who did the work. And what I learned about running specifically is that it's such an accessible sport that like as long as the athlete has the results, people will like give you some grace.
Yeah.
Like they'll be a little bit more flexible. Now it's different when you're the runner, right? And you're trying to inspire people because like, yo, don't tell me to run or try to inspire me to run and you don't run, right? But I think it is a level of like opportunity there for coaches who just want to see people grow and get better and like learn, test some shit out. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. You know, there's always an outlier athlete out there who's going to do well no matter who coaches them.
Right.
But I think for me, when my entry point was people really trusted me as a strength coach. They were like, oh, Percell, great coach. And then when they get around me and they saw like how running, I was benefiting from it, but also how I would program it into their workouts, they'd be like, oh, fuck. Like when I listen to Percell, who's technically not my running coach, right? And I listen to him, I perform better versus this other person who I'm on this running crew or I run with this guy or whatever, or this girl person, and I'm around them, it's not the same. And eventually people just don't learn to trust me more.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
Yeah, I can't complain. I'm fortunate, man. I think I know a lot of, like I said, I don't know a good coach who don't have an ego. I think when I started out coaching, I had to learn how to coach people who I knew had another coach. Like they would come to me, I was either their strength coach or their running coach. I wasn't both. And I knew that somebody else was in their ear. And I had to figure out a way, how do I program without stepping on somebody's toes, and then keeping in mind that there are things that you're doing when I'm not around that I have no control over, and I'm probably, relative to the coach, they're not giving me any insight on for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So it's like when I knew I was really good at my job, when I would take like regular Joe Schmo, who, whatever people, who were working with all these people and doing all these stuff with them, and they were either never did anything before when I got with them, and like they hit every goal, broke every record, or I knew I was really good when I got someone who was like a phenomenal professional, like elite already, and then they came to me and we tweaked some things and they had a breakthrough. Like that's when I was like, oh, like y'all really can't tell me shit. Like
yeah.
I felt really empowered because I was like, oh, I can take the average person and make them, you know, support them in their goals and like they lean in and they have really a lot of success. But I also can take somebody who like is already good. Like one of my clients, she came to me running like 251 already.
Damn.
Right.
That's
like,
quick.
She showed up to me like, I run a 251 marathon.
That's a lot of pressure on you.
So it's like rule number one is don't fuck this up, bro. Like, don't fuck it up. And like, yeah, she now she's like trying to break 240.
Dang.
And it's like to me, it's like, okay. Like I don't really give a fuck what nobody tell me. Like I know that what I'm doing works. So
that's awesome, dude.
Yeah, I try my best to coach without bias, like in my work. Like it's like I know a lot, but I feel like my relationship with a lot of my athletes is collaborative. Like talk to them, get their feedback, how they feeling, and be willing to pivot. Like if the shit ain't working, burn it down.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that feedback process is super important. Dude, tell me about, do you still do anything with Good Work, or is it all kind of more fit for us?
Yeah, good question. So when I first got on social, Good Work was like my brand name.
Okay.
It was my LLC. It was the brand I built. Even like my website is goodwork.com. I've since like grown and I do a lot more. And simultaneously, when your personal brand has a name, and then you create other brands that now have an identity in the name and people resonate with them, it gets a little confusing.
Yeah.
It's like too many names. It's like, what the fuck is this? Good work, fit for us. It's care community. It's what the fuck is going on? So I did file and I own like the trademark to it. I still have the website for it. I still have the name on Instagram. Like when you go to it, it just says follow Percell Dugger. But I would say Fit for Us is my baby. That's like my primary focus outside of like coaching.
And what is Fit for Us?
Yeah, it started off as like a group chat. It was just a bunch of trainers and coaches, black folks who in fitness and wellness, and it was like a call to action. Because like George Floyd just got killed, Ahmaud Arbery got murdered, and it was like,
was that the guy that was running?
Yeah,
that got shot down, like Georgia or something.
Yeah. And it was like this big uproar and this like powerful moment that happened. And I think a lot of people just across the globe, especially like if you were black or brown, felt like we want to have like a call to action. And I think long term, I always knew, I was like, bro, we can have a call to action. We can like call out things and problems within society and community, et cetera, because these things have been here before and they're going to be here after. But how do we take advantage of this moment in a way that's going to bring about sustainable change? And I felt like Fit for Us was that like platform, that community that could like lean into that in terms of programming and events. It's like, yeah, we talk about health disparities and inequality. We talk about maternal health disparities. We talk about food insecurity. We talk about lack of mental health resources. Well, let's create an event and have people come and they can learn about how their mental health impacts their relationship with food. They can learn from OBGYNs and nurse practitioners around maternal health resources, right? Like, cool, it's Women's History Month and that's great, but how do we uplift women in a way that centers their experiences and then offers them like resources and support outside of Women's History Month? And yeah, I would say that like we've been doing a great job.
That's awesome.
I say we because it's not like a one person show, but yeah, I do lead all of it. But yeah, I just recognize that like as a coach, it's important to recognize that like I can have a direct impact on people's lives in terms of coaching them, but I can scale my knowledge and my impact as a coach, as a person, when I think holistically about like the health experiences on the day-to-day of people. And I felt like Fit for Us is that opportunity.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So is it, do you guys do like group events like on a weekly basis, or is it still kind of just online community, or what's that look like now?
It's both. So it's definitely an online community, like, you know, on Instagram, on Facebook, we got a page, we got a website. But outside of that, it's like we have 4 like major events that we do every year.
Nice.
The first one is the every Women's History Month, every March we do an event that centers the experiences of like black and brown women. So like last year was a maternal health like event. This year we're doing a sit down Q&A with Marilyn Bevins, first American-born black woman to win a marathon. So that's in March. Then in May we got this huge workout called Kettlebells versus Dumbbells. And we're teaming up with like the American Heart Association because again, movement, health, heart disease, #1 killer in the country. Exercise is a great way to prevent it. So like Kettlebells versus Dumbbells is basically like one big ass workout party where everyone's gonna learn like using kettlebells or dumbbells, but it's a class basically.
Nice.
And it's a bunch of trainers who all like love kettlebells, some love dumbbells, some love both like me. And yes, just one big class, over 100 people. It's gonna be a good time.
That's awesome.
And then another big event called Run Day. It is essentially A to B run with a elevated experience at the end of the run, and then follow that up with a award ceremony the weekend of a major marathon. So imagine like the Grammys for like runners.
That's sick.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so that's happening this year. And then so that's 2 parts. And then like at the end of the year, we'll do like a coat drive, like a community service event. We have another event called For Us Festival on Juneteenth, which is a big deal. But I think I'm still trying to work through like the timing of it. And like part of the reason I was in Austin, it's an exclusive, y'all. Part of the reason I was in Austin was talking to local based Austin like organizers and community activists about how we can do For Us Festival on Juneteenth, like in Austin, Texas, because
that'd be sick.
yeah, Juneteenth is like it's recognized now as like a national or like a federal holiday. Yeah, but it's been around for the longest. But Juneteenth started in Texas. Like that's a black Texan thing.
I didn't know that.
And over time, other people have adopted it. Like when I was in college, I knew about Juneteenth because Buffalo, like the city of Buffalo, has a huge Texas like influence. But like they celebrate Juneteenth like it's a parade, it's a whole situation. Yeah, and I say all that to say that, like, in my mind, New York City is a weird place, bro. Like, I went to a Juneteenth event once, and I walked in there. Mind you, Juneteenth is a very black, like, holiday. I went in there, bro. It wasn't not one black person at the event. And I was like,
interesting.
It's like, how did it happen? Like, and it's none of my business, but I got invited. I went, and I was confused. So in my mind, I'm like, I want to create a Juneteenth event that centers and celebrates Juneteenth. Like, sometimes I feel like people leverage, like, they'll say, like, we're having a Women's History Month event, and then, like, you get to the event, and it's a bunch of dudes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, this is don't
not right.
Yeah, like, don't use something as a stepping stone to, like, market something or bring awareness to something, but then the programming doesn't support said audience.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's like when gyms put, like, rainbows on T-shirts and sell them for Pride, but, like, the capital from, like, the revenue from the shirts that they sell doesn't go to, like, a community organization that is, like, rooted in supporting the lived experience of the queer community. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's very predatory, and it could get a little nasty. So, like, in my mind, I'm like, how do I create an event that celebrates Juneteenth, right? Everyone can go to it and is invited to come, but it does program and drive awareness to and make people excited to celebrate Juneteenth and what it's rooted in, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a challenge. Don't get me wrong. It's not easy to do. And shout out to anybody trying to do it. I just think that, like, I'm very mindful of the platform that I have, and I feel a level of responsibility, like, to do things the right way, you know? Like, I just think it's weird. Like, I'm like, like I thought it was so cool when Matt Choi ran Korea.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, bro, I fuck with it. Like,
he
was already dope to me. But, like, for him to name and say, hey, like, I have this heritage, I have this upbringing, like, this is part of, like, my culture, and I want to explore y'all and take y'all on there, I think that is way more interesting.
Yeah.
Or just as interesting as him being a runner and an influencer. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I feel like for me, it's not just about, like, Juneteenth, but it's about finding creative ways to drive, like, awareness to people's lived experiences. And I'm excited about it.
That's awesome, dude. I love that.
Yeah.
Using a platform and an audience that you have for something bigger and something good like that is so important, because it's so easy to, like, build a big following and then just use it for clout.
Right.
But, like, actually using it to have a bigger impact is so powerful.
Yeah.
So I love that you're doing that.
I try to tell people all the time, it's like, don't get me wrong, like, being a face of something, everything needs a face. I get it. Cool, whatever, cool. Like, I don't mind not being the face of the work that I do, honestly. But until I find somebody else who's willing to step up here and put the time in and do the work, I think for me, it's just about having impact. Yeah. Like, it's not simply about, you know, going viral or training celebrities. It's like, bro, that stuff is cool, but I promise you, like, I want to do things in a way that changes the lives of people who somebody might not ever meet. Yeah. So it's like, if I can impact heart disease and decrease it by 5% over the next 20 years, like, I know that that's not going to come from simply just, like, training people one-on-one. It's going to come from teaching people about health and wellness in a way that is sustainable and simultaneously inspiring them to either keep going or to get into it, you know? And I feel like running is so accessible. So it's real easy to get into. It's real easy to get out of.
Yeah.
But if it was so easy to start, how come so few people are into running, you know? Like, I put up a post one time and it talked about apology. I don't know if you saw it. I wrote, like, an apology. And it was like, you know how many athletes or people who just maybe don't consider themselves an athlete, but they were on a team at one point, or they just understand sports, and they were like, nah, bro, like, running was a punishment for me. Yeah. Like, I don't want to do that as an adult. Like,
what was the post, just for people that don't know?
Yeah, it was about this idea of apologizing to people because running was taught to them as a lens of punishment and not something you can do for your body, right? Like, it wasn't seen as an act of healing or an act of fulfillment or therapeutic activity or, like, something to just enjoy. It was almost like, oh, you're in trouble. Oh, you did something wrong. Oh, you didn't, like, this is a form of discipline and, like, punishment, and how that can in turn impact your overall long-term health, in a sense that, like, whenever you think about this activity, running, it is seen as, like, a traumatic experience, and you're like, oh, fuck it, I don't want to do this.
Yep. Yeah. That was my experience running growing up.
See?
Probably same to you.
Yeah.
Playing sports growing up.
Get on the line.
Yeah. So you've been obviously, like, in the fitness space for a while now.
Yeah.
How have you seen it changed. Like it seems like running is so trendy now. Like everybody runs. There's so many influencers, runfluencers.
Yeah.
Like how have you seen just the fitness space in general kind of change over the last decade or so?
Man, that's a good question. There is a lot of brand like connection to it.
Yeah.
I remember, so funny story. I had a run on Thanksgiving last year, and there's another running crew there, and we all met up at the same place, like just coincidence. So our meetup was the same place, same time, but so loved. We know everybody in the community. It's cool. So we're hanging out, and we started talking about how everyone was celebrating a 10-year anniversary in 2023. Like a lot of New York City running crews wanted a 10-year anniversary. And funny enough, somebody said, like a newer runner who didn't really know much, they were like, yo, bro, what happened 10 years ago that made everybody want to start running? And some guy was like, oh, well, there was nothing like this in my community. And like, I didn't really see anybody like me running. So like I started running and this is cool. And I was like, So we go for a run. He's like, Percell, what happened? I was like, man, that's not what happened. He's like, what happened? I was like, brands started paying people to run. I was like, the money started floating around. People recognized that. Yeah. They saw opportunity in that, which is nothing wrong with it. Yeah. And they leaned into it. Now, nobody's going to tell you that on record. But like, I wasn't one of those people. I don't really feel a way about saying that publicly. But yeah, like there were brands in New York City who saw opportunity because they recognized that like there was a void. And it was a brilliant fucking idea. Like if it wasn't for that decision, I'm probably not in love with running in the way that I am, you know? So I think I see a lot of people who don't recognize that like 10, 15 years ago, some people had the idea to like lean into running in a more elevated way. And in turn, fast forward, people see how accessible running is and they conflate what they view as like someone's running experience with like this sense of either like entitlement to that thing that they're observing that people do, which is run and coach and post about it, or they feel like they can emulate it and do it themselves and like better. Yeah. And it's like, if you understood that like some of these people, they merely just started picking up a phone. They were already running, they were already coaching, like they're going to continue to do this. But I do think there's a lack of creativity there because the focus is more so on like getting paid, running the business. And like, I don't fault people for wanting to make a living in this sport. I can just tell you from like real life experience that like this idea that like you were going to be a millionaire or a billionaire or make a ton of money running, you might make a quick buck every, one-off opportunity here and there. But every full-time entrepreneur creative I know will tell you that like it's not sustainable. Like they do a number of things and they recognize that like it's more important for them to build their own ecosystem than it is to be dependent on brands. And I feel like there's too much of a brand proximity, elitist, like let me get this like thing and not just like let's just have impact on people's lives. Because that to me is I think more exciting and more compelling. Like that's what I loved about your content. That's what I thought cool about the guy's name. And I forget his name. And that's why I think it's just cool in general.
Talk about like Matt?
Yeah, like I like people who are attempting to like have impact on people. Yeah. And not like people who are just out here grabbing somebody's sneaker, putting it in the camera, yo, buy this, and then like they go run.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of those, like you said, it's a quick buck. It's like might be good in the short term.
Right.
But trying to have impact and create something. I mean, that's why we started Switchback.
Yeah.
It's like, what's your version of that, you think? I mean, obviously you coach.
Yeah.
And would it be fit for us? Like that's your big thing.
It's definitely a thing. Yeah, it definitely is. Cause like, to me, I think fit for us, I recognize is about scaling impact, right? And scaling impact for like in a very measurable way, but for a very like specific community. And I'm okay with that. Cause I know that like that learning can be applied to like a lot of other communities and a lot of other people in general, because it's not just like, don't get me wrong. Again, heart disease is the number one killer in the country, period. It disproportionately impacts this community. So my job is like, I'm killing two birds with one stone if I could figure out a way to have a positive impact on this community. If I start with what I know and tell stories around what I know, I can then scale those stories to have impact that extend far beyond my understanding. But also, like, it's not about me. You know what I mean? Like, I think sometimes with the running creator space, people do things that are very like me centered. Like, me, look at me, look at me, look at me. It's like, bro, I don't care.
Yeah. Like,
I want to talk to you about the impact of what you do.
Right.
Like, and how you're looking to like lean into that more. And I feel like, at least for me, I don't spend a lot of time paying attention to what other people do, but I will say in the moments where like I meet people, or I'm out at events, or like I just see some content on my feed. Yeah. Like, it's like sometimes you just see stuff and you're like, oh, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, okay. Like, I'll never forget, you've seen it. 10 years ago, bro, like ice baths were like, they were like, not okay. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, ice baths were like only for athletes. Yeah. You only saw them in like athletic training rooms on college campuses and like professional sports settings. Then it was like, ice baths are terrible, they're a bad idea, you shouldn't do them. And now it's like, you having a fitness event, everybody got an ice bath. Yeah. So, okay, cool.
It's the brands.
Right. Dude. Like,
yeah.
Or here's another good example. And like part of the reason why I like Switchback, you learn about hydration, learn about like glucose, sodium, potassium. You learn about like this idea that like, if you're an endurance athlete, you're an athlete in general, you need fuel. You just do. But when you look at some of these products, it's not just fuel in here. It's a lot of other shit.
Yep.
And I would argue that like sometimes what is in these things just isn't good for you. Like the totality of what you're consuming isn't good for you. And it's like, who's going to be the person to make a product that like, yo, bro, you need this. I'm going to give you what you need. If you like it, cool. If you don't like it, cool. Don't buy it. But like, these are the things that you need. Because like you're a human body, you're in this sport, and these are the things that are gonna fuel you to have a safe and like sustainable, healthy finish. And it's like, yeah, I'm gonna make that shit. Like, to me, what I think is the coolest thing about like part of the work that you do is that like, again, you're not one of these guys who's out here like telling me a story about some shit that somebody else owned and shoving it down my throat every 10 seconds. Like, I know I'm a Nike coach. I promise you, bro. Like, if you go on my feed, you don't see me talking about this great shoe. Like, I'll talk to you about things that I do on a regular, and I'll sprinkle it in here and there. Yeah. But for the most part, like, I'm not trying to sell nobody else's sneakers. I'm trying to own some shit. I'm trying to scale some shit. And the thing I want to own and scale is rooted in having impact on people's overall health outcomes and experiences. Yeah. And I feel like that's something that I want to see more of from my creative space. I want to see people not just wanting to tell stories. I want to see people telling stories around having an impact on people's experiences that doesn't center them, but centers people. Yeah. You know? And I feel like that's just the part that like, that's why it gets a little bit boring for me.
Yeah. I see why they call you the people's coach now.
Yeah. I try.
Dude, you're just a genuine dude, and you just want to, you're not like the typical Instagram influencer, and I love that.
Yeah, I was, it's a funny story. I'm out, last night I met some folks who work at YouTube, and they were like, "You Coach P, Percell Dugger?" And I was like, "Oh shit, yeah." I was like, they're like, "Are you in a Nike app? I love the treadmill turn up." So I'm like, "Oh, it's cool, great, whatever." And they were like, "Nah, bro, like, you really coach. Like, you're not, like, you're on social, right?" And they looked me up. They were like, "Wow, you're an influencer." And I was like, she was like, "Well, you're not like an influencer." I was like, wait. Like, now you got to explain. Yeah. She was like, like, being an influencer is just like, like nobody really likes influencers. Like, they're just corny. They're annoying. Like, link in bio, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wow. She was like, you're like a real person. Like, I could tell that you really coach. Yeah. You're not just, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but she compared me to somebody else that she knew. And she was like, you're not just some random old guy on my ear, like telling me to keep going every 3 minutes. She was like, you really coach. I could just tell. Like, I love your content. Like, you're great. And I said to say, I appreciate you saying like the people's coach, because I feel like, I remember I was at a run and somebody was like, "Coach Peter, this is the people's coach." And I was like, "Well, why'd you say that?" He was like, "Bro, because you really do care about people." He was like, "You're not one of these influence people." And I was like, oh shit, I didn't know being an influencer was like a racial slur. Like, I didn't know it was an insult. You know what I mean? I really, like, I was like, wait, being an influencer is a bad thing? And then talk to enough people and they tell you the truth. They're like, bro, like, I don't like those kind of people. And it's like, I'm grateful that people see me as a coach. And I think I just want to continue coaching that scale and have a great time doing it.
I love that, dude. 5 marathons coming up this year.
Yeah.
Tell us about those.
LA, that's this weekend. Shit, today's Monday. Fuck. Yeah, this weekend.
Less than a week. This probably won't come out for like a month, but
it's all good.
Yeah.
All right, Trevor.
You've already crushed it by then.
Hey, listen. LA Marathon. Check me out. I'm actually, so it's funny. That one, I'm pacing 4 people. There's 4 first-timers.
Dude, that's awesome.
Who I'm like, supporting in terms of like their first ever one. And for me, it's going to be casual. Like, I'm going to have my camera on. I'm talking shit. We having a good time. So I'm not.
Just a fun run.
Yeah. I try to tell people all the time, there's a difference between running a marathon and racing a marathon.
Oh, big difference.
Once you identify which one you want to do early in your prep and your training, it takes all the pressure off you.
Yeah.
If you know I'm racing, then it's a different kind of conversation.
Yeah.
If you know that you're just running, it's vibes, it's just a different kind of conversation. Mm-hmm. And I feel really confident in my ability to wake up and casually do a 4:20, 4:15, even a 3:50 marathon. Like, that's not, to me, is whatever.
That's great.
So yeah, that's this weekend, March 18th. Sri Chimney, which is in, I believe, April or May.
Where's that?
It's like upstate New York.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe it's like upstate New York or somewhere like in Pennsylvania. It's one of the two.
Okay.
But it's basically like a really flat course. It's a good Boston qualifier. It's a flat course around like this lake. It's like 8 loops around this lake.
Have you got your BQ, Boston qualifier
No,
yet?
I haven't yet. No.
Are you going to try at that one?
Probably not.
No?
Probably for Chicago.
Oh, Chicago's a great one.
Yeah, Chicago is probably what I'm going to do it for.
Yeah.
So Sri Chimney. Then I'm doing the Paris Olympics, that marathon.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, I got a bib from a brand. Then I'm doing Chicago.
Is that June? When is Paris?
July. Actually, it's in August.
Okay. But
the Olympics start at the end of July on the 26th.
Okay.
And it goes through like mid-August, like August 11th or something like that.
Heck yeah.
Or 12th. And then Chicago.
Chicago's great. Have you done that one yet?
I haven't.
It's so fast.
All of these are gonna be my first time. Like,
nice.
Yeah, all of them are my first time. And then after Chicago, there's New York and then Dallas.
Ooh.
And I think I'm probably going, like, I don't know if I'm gonna run New York. I might just like pace some homies and hang out. I'm not sure. New York is TBD, but I know like Dallas is a vibe.
Yeah.
So like for me, it's like those are like the 5. I'm like, all right, cool. I got my 2 in the beginning of the year. I take some time off in between. And then like Chicago, I am running my ass off. Like, I am trying to, like the best I can.
Is it 3:05 for your, or are you still sub 3?
Yeah, okay. Sub 3. And I feel like,
I know how old you are.
Yeah. See, look, I try to tell you do the math, bro. You figure it out eventually. So yeah, 3:0, sub 3. And I feel like that's really it. After that, everything else is just vibes.
Heck yeah.
Have you run New York yet?
No, I'm doing it this year.
So,
yeah,
I'm telling you now, I'll give you some good little inside tips for New York City.
Yeah.
Number 1, if you stay wherever you want to stay in New York City, but the night before the marathon, get you an Airbnb in Staten Island.
Oh, maybe we shouldn't tell the people this.
Yeah.
They're going to buy them up.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
It's like,
nobody listens to this part. Anyway.
It saves you so much fucking time, bro. Like that early morning bus ride at something a.m. when the sun is down and it's cold and you're waiting outside. Like, nah, bro. Just get an Airbnb somewhere in Staten Island. And then the morning of, it's going to Uber you to the bridge. You're going to have to get out and walk like everybody else. But it will save you a headache. Like some people who run a marathon, what they don't tell you is like you spend 3 hours waiting for the race to start. You wake up dumb early. You get to the start. The race doesn't start till damn near 9 o'clock anyway. So even if you had to get up at 6 and this crowd closes at this time and blah, 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 blah. Like,
it's a long day.
It's a long day, bro. So the more sleep you can get,
yeah, just
sleep in Staten Island.
Okay.
I try to tell people every year, like, especially if you're coming to town like a Wednesday or a Thursday and you're hanging out, but like that Saturday night, get a different room and stay in Staten Island.
Okay.
Like
that's good info.
Yeah. Other than that, when the marathon ends, it's a shit show to get your stuff and to get like in an Uber. So if you're gonna stay in the city, try to stay somewhere near the marathon finish line.
Okay.
Like it'll just make your cool down process. You don't have to hop on the train and go to Brooklyn. Like stay in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Stay on the west side of Manhattan. And like try not to get in the train or take an Uber that day. It's gonna suck.
This is good info.
Yeah.
Yeah. How many times have you done New York City?
New York City once.
Just once.
But like I've cheered for it, which is just as hard as fucking running it.
Yeah.
I've cheered for it like 5-6 times.
Nice.
Yeah.
So. How many marathons have you done leading into this year?
3.
3.
Yeah. So I haven't even like, if you ask me, like I leaned into marathons right before COVID hit. Like I was the half marathon guy who was like, when I got into running, I'm never gonna do a marathon. I was that guy. I was like, I'm not gonna run a marathon. Who the fuck wants to do that? Like what? Like huh? Why?
It's so trendy now, though.
Yeah, no. I mean, I do like how trendy it is, but I also think that like I don't see a lot of people narrating exactly how hard this shit is.
Yeah.
Like it's not. You did a great job the other day. Not the other day when you ran Austin.
Oh yeah.
And you were like, it's funny. Like I thought you were gonna lean into it more. You were like, all right, clocking about 3:05, sub 3:05, like 3 hours. Like, oh, let's see if we're gonna lean in. And like a few clips later, you're like, yeah, we'll probably stay right here.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, bro, that shit's not easy. Like people don't understand that like
it's hard.
Running is hard, period. And then running hard for 26.2 miles, it's not a joke.
No.
It's not a joke. Like
you can really only do it like once or twice a year, like all out.
Yeah. You gotta pick, but I mean, think about it, and this is like more down like the coaching standpoint. It's like you look at guys like all the elites, they don't run and win 5 marathons a year.
Yeah.
Like they'll pick 2. Kipchoge runs 2 races a year.
Yeah.
Other elites, they pick 1 and 2 races and they get after it.
Yeah.
Everything else, vibes.
Yeah.
And when I say vibes, I mean like the training, downtime, recovering, healing, whatever. But yeah, it's like if the best of the best only do this less than a handful of times a year, like I'm kind of crazy for doing 5. But when you take into consideration that like of those 5, only 2, one of them I'm gonna run hard. The other one I am trying to like, do everything but die.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like if people knew that, they would understand like, okay, you know what? Then like, yes, it's accessible. Yes, it's trendy, but man, it's not ever easy. Like never eat. Like you're in a very experienced marathon and runner. You have more experience racing than I do, and you can tell people there's no such thing as an easy marathon.
No,
like,
not at all.
Just not.
Not at all. Yeah. It's a lot for your body.
Yeah.
Dude, we've been going for 2 hours.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
I know you got to probably go soon.
Great job.
That was fun, man.
Yeah, I had a great time.
Where is the best place for people to connect with you? If they want to reach out?
I would say check me out on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. My handles are in Threads. My handle is Percell Dugger on all of them. Percell. Last name Dugger, Dugger. And check me out there. Check me out at Fit For Us. We got an event coming up, probably near you, a workout or something. But check us out. It'll be a good time.
Beautiful, dude. Thanks for coming on. This is fun.
Man, thanks for having me. I can't believe you're talking for 2 hours. This is crazy.
I know, dude. It's like time flies in this thing.
It really does. When you're having fun, at least.
Heck yeah, dude. Dude, well, you're doing some amazing things. I'm excited to see these 5 marathons. Excited to see Fit For Us grow.
Yeah.
And excited to stay connected with you, dude.
Exactly. Hopefully I catch you at a Strava event.
Yeah.
Are you going to Camp Strava?
So I just found out about that like 2 days ago.
You gotta go, bro. You gotta go.
It's in California, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's worth the trip.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and make it. When is it?
I think May.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna do what I can to get out there. You're going?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a thing.
Heck yeah.
Gotta go.
Yeah, if I don't see you there, definitely like New York City Marathon or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? I'll probably have like a shakeout of some runs and stuff, and I can probably like direct you about like who to like meet up with and other folks. Because I don't know if you're gonna bring, or there's a podcast studio you can like record in, but if you want to like connect with some folks, just if you think through that stuff, let me know and I can tell you exactly who to talk to.
For sure. That'd be perfect.
Yeah, no problem, man.
All right, dude.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy.
Yeah, sir. Thanks for coming on, man.
Peace.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you in the next one.